Welcome into an all-new episode of Panthers on Tap. I'm Curtis Rauen, joined by Bryson, Karbley, and Ricky Raines, coming to you guys on a Thursday night this week. We are into 2025. Gentlemen, how we doing? It's good to see you guys. We for a little while. I know we had the holidays happen, and then the New Year. Did you guys get what you wanted for Christmas, Kwanzaa, Hanukkah, whatever you celebrate?
Yeah, I would say I got what I wanted for the most part. I mean, season tickets were under the tree, but hey, that might be a gift that I'm not getting. That's good for me. So, other than the Carolina Panthers not knowing how to play defense, the Tar Heels sucking at basketball, and the Carolina Hurricanes going on a little bit of a slide, I'm doing all right.
Oh yeah. I got everything I wanted, man. And I got a little bit of a 3-day hangover too, man. When you get old, you can't really do the all day Christmas partying like you used to. You know what I mean? We do a big old fashioned bash over here at my house. Good time, man. The kid got all the stuff that he wanted. He got a Carolina Panthers helmet and he wore it for the whole damn day. Put the thing on and he opened presents, eating dinner, anything he could do with that helmet on, man. He was doing it. So I was a proud dad. And I also, Bryson, I understand completely what you're saying about the season tickets. Not getting them might be a good thing, because watching him with that helmet also made me realize he is in for a life of heartache, man. And I'm like, you're just going to be the toughest kid in the world, bud.
Ricky, you still got the tree up?
Still got the tree up. I still got the lights up. And it's not even really because I'm still super into it. It's just because I've been super lazy ever since Christmas and since New Year's. I don't have it in me, man. Like, look, if it was one easy thing for me to take down, no problem, right? But I've got like 1,800 lights outside this damn house right now. I don't know that I have the time to do it, buddy.
No, I don't blame you. I think we're at some point we got a real tree, so I'm ready to take that thing down, but we'll see what happens.
Curtis, please
Bryson, what
do
about
not.
you?
Curtis, please do not burn that tree again in your fire pit. We like what was it, like probably 3 or 4 years ago, when I was living in Winston close to Curtis, he had like a bonfire one night and we carried his tree out to his fire pit and we burned it. And I kid you not, the flames from that tree, like his house is like 3 stories when you include the basement level. The flames were like to his roof.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we were worried.
We almost burned down the neighborhood.
Yep. That was done that bad before too, man. It is a dangerous thing, but it smells terrific, you know.
I still have our tree from last year. It's sitting in our backyard waiting to be burned. So I got 2 trees, and the one we got this year is like a 12 or 13 footer. So
damn. Oh my god. Hell
yeah. But yeah. We appreciate you guys tuning back in with us. I know we took a week off. We apologize, but we had to take some family time. I do want to just take a quick mention, just to send our sympathies to everyone impacted in New Orleans on New Year's Day with the terror attack. I just wanted to briefly mention that. Can't forget that. Just a horrific incident there. So just everyone in that area, know anyone, for everyone across the country, just thoughts and prayers there. Gentlemen, we always started off. What do you guys got? What are you guys drinking tonight? I'm going to kick things off. I feel like one of you guys have had this on the episode. I don't know. I got it from Total Wine and More. I was trying to be creative. I was honestly trying to find like anything that had to do with a tank on a beer. I couldn't find it. So I was like, I want either a tank or the Panthers going out with a bang. So I found this. It's Bang Bang. I don't know if you guys have had this. It's a juicy, if I can figure out the camera here, it's a juicy IPA out of Armored Cow Brewing. Do you have ever heard of that, Ricky? That's, I believe, in Charlotte.
I've not. No. I've never had that beer, and that the name doesn't even sound familiar to me. But to be fair, man, a new brewery pops up in Charlotte just about every other Thursday. So that's probably a newcomer. How is it? Is it good?
Yeah, it is. It's smooth. It does not taste like an IPA. I mean, it's got a hint of it on the back end, but it's pretty damn smooth. I enjoy. It's really good. 7.3%. So that's what I got going on. Ricky, what do you got?
Nothing special for me tonight, man. I've emptied out my stock pretty much at my house from Christmas to New Year's. there is nothing safe in this house. So I have my old reliable Champagne Velvet. It's the beer with the $1 million flavor. It's like a 5.2%er. It's just a crap beer, but it's got a nice can. And you know, I bought it so that it was my easy drinker for New Year's Eve too, because it's Champagne Velvet, right? The little toast of champagne without being the champagne of beers, because I drink enough High Life throughout the year. So this is all I got, man. I got 3 of these sturdy boys, and that'll do it for me.
Bryson?
Yeah, nothing fancy either. It's a beer from a local brewery here in Raleigh, Brewery Bavana. It's called Brisk. It's a Pilsner. It tastes like loose change, like pennies and nickels and dimes laying around. That's the flavor
Really?
I'm getting. Yeah, kind of like Michelob Ultra a little bit. I kind of get the same flavor from Mick, but I like Mick. And this isn't bad. It's just that the flavor just isn't there all the way for me.
Interesting. I don't know if I'd want to be drinking loose change, but it's what you got. So I don't blame you. Drink up and enjoy it. All right, let's talk about this game. A lot to unpack in this one, or if you look at it the other way, not a lot to unpack because they just suck ass on defense. But let's talk about the game. I'm not sure where Ricky went. I do not see his picture. He might have stepped out, but we'll start off the top here. Bryson, if you want to get us going, just your thoughts on this one. I guess we can start with the defense, because that was the most disappointing thing of this game and really has been all season. But what did you see out of them? What didn't you see? Concerns at all?
Yeah, man. It was a bad day when you got Kyle Trask taking a knee at the end of the game, like showing you mercy. I think that really tells you all you need to know about the game. Baker Mayfield threw 5 touchdowns. You know, Bucky Irving looked like one of the best running backs in the league, which he might be. I mean, he's electric. You know, they could just do whatever they wanted the whole game, the whole entire game. The Panthers struggled to get any stops. And, yeah, I mean, it was – of course, Carolina was missing a bunch of key players, and but you would still hope to see some competitiveness from that defense, and it just wasn't there. Like I said, when the game's ending with Kyle Trask taking a knee and showing you mercy, I think that's just really all you need to know about how the game went. The defense obviously has some major holes, especially when they're missing 1 or 2 players. Makes it even worse. You know, 1 or 2 of their top players. Jewel not out there with Horn not out there. It was just it was bad. And you know, frustrating day for sure.
Yeah. Sorry, my video kept freezing with the other camera, so I had to switch it over real quick. Yeah, Bryson said it all. I mean, you had Kyle Trask doing the victory formation at the end of that game. That's never a good sign, because Kyle Trask, I don't think, has done that a whole lot in his career. So if he's doing it against you, then you have hit a bad point. I thought that the first half, man, that this team still looked competitive. I thought that they came out with some juice and looked like they had some intent still to kind of bring it to the Buccaneers, right? Like, I thought that they were really trying to say, hey, we're not just going to be this pushover and walkover in this game. Bryce Young made some outstanding throws early on. Without Chuba Hubbard, that ground game was just kind of miserable. And I think that you could see, too, that Canales didn't have a whole lot of interest, man, in trying to go to that well all that often, because I don't think that he believed in it. I thought that he probably could have found a little bit more success with Mike Boone a little bit early in that game. The physicality that was missing from Chuba Hubbard, you're not going to get with Raheem Blackshear. When Raheem Blackshear was, even when he had a hole, he got to it. The first defender that he ran into, man, that defender was stopping him in his tracks. So we didn't get a whole lot over what you would anticipate getting. And then that second half, man, I mean, look, once they started rolling, what are you going to do? We've got a defense that is leaking yardage and leaking points. And we just saw the product of it, man. And when you don't have J.C. Horn out there, Mike Jackson, credit to him, man, he's still playing some pretty good football. But our secondary, man, our safeties are rough. Like Damani Richardson, I know we all like him, undrafted free agent. He's learning on the fly. I think he still played better than Jordan Fuller. And Jordan Fuller was supposed to be the guy who came in and shored up that unit because he knows Evero's system. I would love to talk a little bit about Evero's system later in the show. Curtis, I'm hoping that you have something about what he said and how he has schematic adjustments that he could have made to help with the run defense. And that's, going into week 18. Yeah, there's probably some things he could have done. Maybe a New Year's resolution for coach would be, if you have something to do to make your team better, you do it. I know that there's personnel issues tied to that, but man, to quote Clark Griswold one last time for Christmas, hallelujah, holy shit, just do something there for me, bud. Yeah, tough game, man.
Yeah, this one was brutal. I was watching this at the airport best I could. I mean, there was some plays I missed, and then I ended up watching some more tonight, just like the 15-minute highlight reel of it. And I watched most of the game probably till the end of the third quarter, and then the fourth quarter I missed because we were on our plane at that point. But yeah, it was embarrassing. I mean, the highlight of the game was that fucking duck on the field. That's literally why I titled the episode "What the Duck," because I thought that was hilarious, and just it's been the way this Panthers see. I mean, we're the laughing stock in games at some points. I know, Bryce Young has played well in games and stuff like that, but this game across the board was ugly. I think Dave Canales hit on the head. I thought they got out-coached, outplayed in this one, which has kind of was kind of disappointing because I thought Canales would kind of have more of a bounce back from the last time they played Tampa Bay this year, and this game would have been much closer, and clearly that wasn't the case. Mike Evans does what Mike Evans does every time he plays Carolina, lit him up. Caleb Farley was no match for him. I'm not sure why he was the guy matched up on him. He's tiny. He's small, slender. I thought Mike Jackson probably should have been on his ass the whole game. I don't know if that still would have mattered, but I think that would have probably been my call. But this defense, man, it's embarrassing. It really is. I never thought a Carolina Panthers football team would be this bad defensively. When you think of the Carolina Panthers since their existence, it's always really been about the defense, and it's non-existent with this team, and it sucks because that I think we would see even more of a better Bryce Young when his defense is giving them the ball back. But even then, the offense sucked too. Bryce had some good throws. He was getting pressure a lot. They were missing Taylor Moton. But even then, the defense got a couple stops in this one in the first half. Offense wouldn't respond. So it was just disappointing all around. I wanted to talk quickly about Dane Jackson. I'll say his name because he's been really pissing me off. I do not want to see this guy on this team after this year. I don't know what has happened to him. Because I thought maybe with Dan Morgan and his confidence in him, bringing him over from Buffalo, his guy, he has been awful. He has been terrible, and he looks timid out there. He does. I know you guys pushed back on me a little bit on that a couple of weeks back, but this game, man, there was a couple times where Bucky Irvin ripped one off, and he's just running right alongside of him. I mean, it was just what are we doing? This guy, I do not want to see him on the Panthers whatsoever. Not even as a backup. I just don't like his play at all. I think he's bad, and it's just not good, man. When 23 is in the game, it's horrendous. It is. I don't know what you guys think about him, but I'm over him. I'm done.
I think you make or raise an interesting point too that just kind of can go for everything when it comes to talent acquisition and infusing into a roster. There's only so much that you can will out of a player, right? Because I know that we all thought that the connection with Dan Morgan and him handpicking him, that it was going to work. Dane Jackson was a second, third stringer in Buffalo. Dane Jackson was not a starter. And there's a reason for that. He just wasn't a starter to play for them. He wasn't at that level. They had better players. We brought him here. We were pretty depleted in the secondary, but we had the hope that, Dan Morgan made a really good decision. The point that I'm trying to bring up is we have to start bringing in big time talents, no question asked talents that are just very good football players, not just for the system, man. Like, and this goes for the offense too, though. I don't want to pick players that only work for these systems anymore. I don't want to sign free agents that can only play for a certain coach in a certain kind of scheme. I want guys that can do anything that they are asked to do and do it at a high level. And we keep getting these like pigeonhole type players, specialty type players that have done one thing before and that they did it okay. And that we want to keep having them do that and hope that they get to the next level. It's just not going to happen, man. Dane Jackson in particular, I don't want to like be rude about it, but Curtis, I'm in full support of your agenda here. I don't want to see him play for the Carolina Panthers anymore, man. I think that we have got to upgrade whatever is going on with that secondary. They've got to upgrade a lot of positions there. Mike Jackson and J.C. Horn are very good football players, and that's about it. I think that every other position, now Cho Smith-Wade is a rookie, and he was a 5th-round rookie, so we shouldn't have huge expectations, but we need to get better, man. Like, we've got a lot of work to do this offseason, and I really am just at the point where making excuses for decent talent because we had an idea doesn't fly for me anymore.
Yeah, and I agree with your guys' sentiment. You know, it's not worked out. There's no way around it. He's not looked good when he's been on the field. He's been injured, and you know, when he's out there, he's struggling to make a difference in a positive manner. He's making a difference in a negative manner most of the time. So it's not good. But one guy, I'm going to be completely honest, I didn't even know was on this team or even on the practice squad a couple of weeks ago that I've kind of been impressed with in the past couple of weeks is I think his name is Jacoby Wyndham. Ricky, correct me if I'm wrong, but
is it Wyndham? Yeah.
Wyndham's been making some plays, man. He's been showing up when nobody else has. I know he's an undrafted free agent, but you know, on the defensive line, he's been, you know, some tackles for losses, which we don't see a lot in Carolina. I think he even got a couple sacks. So, you know, even the announcers are talking about him when the Panthers defense is out in the field. So that's one positive that I can take away from this defense in this past game, his play. But before you go, Curtis, I wanted to mention real quick. We haven't mentioned it yet. Just a reminder. If you guys do feel generous enough tonight, we do have the function of a super chat. Help us help you by helping us make better content for you guys, investing that money into the podcast, and maybe potentially going on a trip sometime. I don't know, but if you do feel in the giving mood still after the holidays, we would appreciate anybody's willingness to do that.
Yeah, before I wanted to jump off of what Ricky said, but I just want to rant a little bit because I forgot to just off the top. We were talking, Ricky and I both got, you can see similar hats to Fanatics. I got to rant about Fanatics for a second before I forget about it. But I finally got my shipment in. It's their, what is it? Tyler the Creator. Is that what it is? Tyler the Creator's clothing line. He came out with an NFL clothing line. Pretty cool stuff. A lot of retro classic logos and apparel. It took a month for us to get our stuff in, or at least for me. I got a shirt in, and it's a fucking Rams. I was pissed. It literally came in tonight. I got the hat right, obviously. And then when I called the sport team, of course, all this shit is sold out. So all I can get is a refund and a 30% off discount, which I get every other month anyway. So like there's no benefit. I was pretty pissed off. But I just had a because they made my night pretty turned it upside down when I got home. So just wanted to mention that. But the hats are awesome. Love your hat. I love the hat from 47. They do a hell of a job. But Ricky made a good point, and you talked about you just want them to bring in good players. I think that needs to be done even more, because it just feels like sometimes they pigeonhole themselves in well, is he's this kind of guy, and you don't want to fit a square peg in a round hole. I get that, but you just need to go out and get dogs and guys who can fucking play football, and let's bring them in here, stack the talent, and then find fits within your team. Like it seems like these couple years they're just getting these bottom feeders, and I get it. They've been in cap situations where they don't have money. I understand that. But at some point, the well's got to break here. Like, we got to start getting guys who can play the game and who can impact the play. And that's just not happening. Obviously, the defense depleted this year. But this is bottom of the barrel. Even when Carolina's had bad defenses in the past, there's been games where these guys, you rally together and you inspire whatever it is, and you at least play competent football at points. And this last game was it was all hell for this defense. And it sucked because Carolina, they go in and beat a playoff team who was trying to get in the playoffs in Arizona. Granted, they did give up 30 points in that game. And then, the offense kind of slips this last game. Defense can't hold, and it opens up a whole can of worms. So, they get football players, man. It sucks.
And I don't. There's no way to like oversimplify that though, right? Because I don't want it to sound like I'm saying you just got to go do better, and that's such an easy thing to do is to just do better, right? Because like everyone is trying to build a good team. That's not necessarily like I'm not trying to make it seem so simple of a task. But there's a disconnect that's happening here in Carolina. And whether it is that the coaching is not doing their job by getting the most out of the players, right? Or the front office is just not doing a great evaluation job of it. And I'm going to tie this into Evero just briefly for a second, because we have said multiple times on this show, man, like I don't think it's that Ejiro Evero cannot coach. I think he's a very smart coach. I think that he's well respected. Things not working here in Carolina. I'm going to put up the comment Kevin Ketchy posted in the chat, which, by the way, we haven't said anything about the chat yet. Thank you for everyone that's in there that's active, very active already. Happy New Year to my mother. She's in there, and she already said it. She was like first one, wanted to be there talking. So everyone that's involved here, we appreciate you. But Kevin Ketchy brings up something, and this is what made me think of Evero. Words on the street was disappointment when Dane Jackson came to Carolina from Bills fans. So Buffalo Bills fans kind of liked Dane Jackson. They had a warm sentiment, at least, for the guy, right? And a lot of times teams fans will have good feelings about like their reserve players that come in and give them somewhat decent production while their starters are out, which is kind of what Dane Jackson did a lot when Tre'Davious White was injured in Buffalo. But he says whether it's a personnel mismatch with the system or the system itself, it's been a complete whiff. We've just had a lot of it, man. And then we've gotten rid of players that left because of the reason that they weren't being used right in the system, or they thought that they could be better used in a different system, or guys that Ejiro Evero simply couldn't find a way to get him on the field. I'm talking about Jeremy Chin, and he's making big-time plays for the Washington Commanders with our good friend Frankie Louvu. And look, man, it is frustrating as a fan of the Carolina Panthers, who, knowing that we were 4-11 going into that game, knowing that we were down players, knowing that we were probably going to lose, I was still like amped up for this football game, man. I get amped up every damn Sunday, and I'm not, it's easy to get amped up. We're fans, but we put so much into this. Fans do. And I'm not just talking about us on this show. I just mean in general, man. People pay their money on season tickets. They are invested in this football team. And sometimes, man, I just don't know how invested everybody in that building seems to be, like all the way, because what are we doing here, man? Like, how do we keep on perpetually messing up and missing out and losing things that we had? When you have a nice bunch of shiny jewels, man, keep them. Like, don't go trade them for pebbles that you got to clean up and hope they're jewels. Keep them. Speaking of jewels, I miss Josie Jewell. I'm sure Bryson did. He loved him. Now I'm on this mini rant and I'm making words that correlate with other ideas that I want to rant about. I just got to shut up before I start turning red in the face. But I'm getting really sick of this team not doing what they think that they're doing, if that makes sense. They keep on having these grand ideas and no execution. Something has to change here. And we are going into an offseason where I wouldn't be surprised if there was a defensive change involved.
To your point on Chin quickly, they're getting rid of players that have made impact on this team previously. It goes back, and I hate to go to previous regimes, it goes back to Gilmore, letting him walk when there was, you should have never done that. Letting Hassan Reddick go when he had his best season as a pro. And now, we all know what he did in New York. But this team continually, I feel like, just shoots themselves on the foot when they actually have a competent player. They let him slip away. Frankie Louvu too. Like that guy was made here. He wasn't, he made some plays in New York, but his career was defined in Carolina before he went to Washington. Yeah. That guy go. They let him out the door. And they let Chin out the door. And I don't know. I was kind of on the fence with Chin because I thought he has slipped since really his first season when I thought had played at a really high level in his first year. But it just goes back to like I'm tired, and I get it. I get the money situation. I see the chat talking about the money situation. I get that, but like sooner or later, you gotta figure this shit out. And we talk about Brand Tillis. This guy's supposed to be the genius with money. They better have money every single fucking year moving on, because I'm tired of every year. It's like, well, they're still middle of the pack in free agency. No, let's open some shit up here and have so you can spend in free agency more and get impactful players, because it's infuriating. And to your point a little bit, talking about the defense, and I know this kind of dovetails off in a whole nother direction, but Panthers are sitting there at 39, and you go in the list. I was looking at it the other day, and I'll try to quickly pull it up while we're talking about it, is the second round at pick 39. I get it. You got your second round pick back this year, but you went out and got a running back who I loved. I liked the pick. But you got a running back who's coming off an ACL injury, re-tears his ACL this year, and you have a coach who doesn't know how to use his running back who put up 1,000 yards this season. So that's a whole nother question. There was top-end talent in the second round when it came to the defense in this year's draft. And guys come to mind. Edgerrin Cooper was still there when Carolina drafted, which would have changed your third-round pick because you wouldn't have got Trevin Wallace. So that could have happened. I'm quickly trying to pull this up as I'm ranting here with this second round. But you had guys, Braden Fiske, Cooper DeJean, Kool-Aid McKinstry, Kamir Lassiter, who's playing really well for the Texans. All those guys were available, and all those guys would have been starters for this team. Impact players week 1, not week 11, like Jonathan Brooks. And you let those guys go because you wanted to get a back who was not ready to play in the season and now is probably not going to play until November of next year at the earliest. So, I mean, I get it. Dan he's made some good decisions, but he deserves some flack here too, because this whole draft could have been shaped differently looking at some of the players. And we didn't even talk about Xavier Legette, who's not playing very well right now either. So, I mean, that goes into a whole nother conversation. I'm sorry, Bryce, you can go, but there's some missteps, I think, this year that could have propelled this team a little bit better defensively going into this season.
Yeah, I mean, guys, look, we're the Carolina Panthers. Unfortunately, this is what we do, right? We get rid of players too early. We don't re-sign players that are good. We cut our franchise quarterback, or we don't protect him and get him injured and ruin his career early. Like, it's just what we do. There's missteps from the beginning of time with this franchise to today. I'm not sure if it's ever going to change. It feels like it might not, but we're always going to have hope that it does. I know us three at least will. I think they've made some good steps in the right direction, and that starts with getting Bryce Young back on the field this season and showing and seeing that improvement from him, and having a quarterback for the future. And he's obviously shown some growth from last year to this year. So it's going to be important to surround him with talent and add to that defense. But real quick, just to touch on what Ricky mentioned, and I think Kevin in the chat mentioned it. This is a completely different defense when Josie Jewell's not on the field. Like, he changes this defense. It's still not a top-end defense, but we saw how bad it was last week without him, and weeks prior when he's been out. He is definitely like the leader of the defense when he's on the field. The shot caller, he's super smart, always feels like he's in the right place. He's not a perfect player by any means, but definitely the best linebacker we have on this team. And when he's not out there on the field, this defense feels it. So I think that was a good signing. I loved it from the beginning, and hopefully he sticks around in Carolina for a while. But yeah, I mean, I don't even know where to start to address the holes that this team has. We always hear the arguments on Twitter. Do they add a wide receiver 1, or do they add to the defense like in the first round? Like, which way do they go? I don't really think there's a wrong answer. because you need both. And of course, the defense is terrible, but is 35-year-old Adam Thielen going to be our best wide receiver next year for Bryce Young? I hope not. But if they don't add early in the draft or in free agency and get a guy like T. Higgins or whatever the case is, then I think that's a major mistake, not continuing to add talent around Bryce Young. So, there's so many holes on this team. Do they go edge? Do they go corner? Do they go safety? Do they go linebacker? Like, they could literally pick any player. Kicker. We all know we need a kicker. Eddie Pinheiro sucks ass. He's terrible. And, if they go kicker, I think why the fuck not, right? Let's try something different in Carolina because the shit hasn't worked in the past. So, whatever the case is, start somewhere, have a plan, know what you're doing. Even if it's the wrong plan, just have a plan because it's felt like for years in Carolina we haven't had a plan. Just threw shit together and hoped it worked. So just have a plan. And I have confidence that Dan Morgan does. I don't know if it's blind confidence or if it's just because I'm a fan. I'm hoping for the best, but I have confidence that he does have a plan moving forward for this team and wants the best. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and I did want to get back to that because that's where I wanted that to end up, right? I was going to kind of ask you because the Jeremy Chinn thing is kind of where I land with that have a plan thing. Jeremy Chinn, I don't want to glorify it like he had been piling up all pro years here in Carolina. He had his breakout season, and then it was kind of a struggle to find out where he fit, right? But that's kind of on the coaching that was here. Couldn't figure out what to do with him, couldn't figure out the best way to use him. And then Evero comes in and everyone's very excited about it. And Evero says he's a weapon and I can't wait. I'm going to use him all over the field. Then he gets 30% playing time when he's healthy. I know that he was dealing with injury. But where it falls back to is if you go Jordan Fuller and you get rid of Jeremy Chinn, I can even understand that because of the familiarity that you have with Jordan Fuller, because of the fact that you didn't know what Jeremy Chinn was and what he wasn't. You couldn't figure that out. I'm okay with saying, hey, I'm not comfortable operating this machinery. Right? Get somebody qualified or bring in a car that I could drive type of deal, right? That doesn't bother me. But what bothers me is that when your plan was the other thing and it sucks, then I start worrying about your plan. And then I start worrying about the future plans that you are entrusted with. Now, Dan Morgan had one offseason and he was strapped with the history of what the previous general manager and front office and head coach and everybody else that was involved decided to do. So I do want to take that into consideration. I'm not out on Dan Morgan, but that's why I said that this offseason, I think is imperative. It is critical for Dan Morgan and this team's success because the window on your quarterback that you took first overall is closing. You're going to be on year 3, and you're going into it not knowing what you have at playmaker for him outside of Chuba Hubbard. You don't know. Jatavion Sanders showed flashes, and I think we all want it to be something. But Jatavion Sanders also showed why he probably lasted until the 4th round. He's a little bit limited athletically. He's got good hands. I think that with more reps and more consistency, I think he could be a very
opportunities, man.
I think he could be a very good ball player. But why is he not getting the opportunities? That's kind of part of my gripe with some of this. Yeah, but again, I just don't know how we can't figure out a way to get multiple people operating together. There has to be. This is on the coaching to get an entire unit to be able to function together and not just say, we've got 2 guys that are really good at playing catch on Sundays, and we're going to let them kind of operate and get as much as they can out of it. You need more than that. And I hope that Xavier Legette develops. I don't want this to be some doom and gloom thing that I'm talking here. I'm not upset about the Jonathan Brooks pick. I understand why they did that. I liked it. It went to hell. It sucks. He got injured. You know what I mean? The
problem I have, Ricky, hold on. The problem I have with it is Dave Canales' decision-making in games with the running backs. It still doesn't add up. I love the Jonathan Brooks.
Right.
I wanted him. I don't knock that at all. Hindsight's 2020. There was a lot of defensive guys who are playing really well right now that could have got with that 2nd-round pick. However, when you have a coach who deviates from his stubborn with the run so damn early in games, I question his decision-making on wanting another back the way Chuba Hubbard's played this year. And I'm sure they didn't think Chuba Hubbard was going to rip off 1,000 yards this season. I'm sure of that. But when you have a coach who is supposedly supposed to be stubborn with the run, and the minute they go down by a touchdown or 2, it's let's throw Bryce Young 50 times at the game. That's a problem because that shit don't add up. Because how are you going to get Jonathan Brooks and Hubbard the amount of touches in a game when you can't even run Hubbard properly? That's the issue I have.
And we can't trust the defense to stop the opponent from running all over you, which then if they're up 2 scores and you know that the defense is going to allow more, I mean, look, it's all tied together, right? We know that. Bryson said it. We don't even, how do you approach this? What do you even do to fix this? And he starts naming off the different positions where you could aim and what you could look at. Man, to be honest, you know what the answer is, Bryson? All of it. You got to do all of it. And like, there's not a magic wand. So what you need is a really competent front office who is going to be able to identify where they allocate the money of free agency, where the best talent improvement can come from. And then you just pick that player in the draft or you sign that player. If it looks like an overpay, you can't worry about it. If you have gumption and you feel good about something, this is the Detroit Lions model, right? They go and they get what they want. They don't give a damn about looking silly and about value on charts. They go and they get what works for them. Now, this is where we have to trust Dan Morgan and Dave Canales. And I'm willing to do that for this offseason, man. Like, I'm not out on this stuff. I'm frustrated that we are on this show again talking about possibly ending the season 4-13. That's all this is for me. I am frustrated because I am tired of losing. And at some point, man, no matter how much I like players, no matter how much I believe in them, no matter how high of a grade I had on them as a draft evaluation, if they're not winning games and they're not performing on the field, I can't sit here and just like, oh, man, I'm so excited about what they could be. Like, no, I need them to be it, man. Like, I'm at the point where I need them to be it now.
And while it's frustrating,
I want to go back
to continually come on here and talk about this stuff, Ricky. For me, it's a sense of relief to know that we have only one game left, and we are almost done with this season. Yeah, I mean, cheers to that.
I'll drink to that, Bryson.
Yeah, like it. I'm sad football season's almost over, but I'm happy that we don't have to watch the 2024 Carolina Panthers anymore, to be completely honest. Because it's been so unpredictable. Every week we come on here and we talk about different shit. You know, things are looking up, things are looking down, things are looking up, things are looking down. And let's just close up shop, man. Let's go to Cabo. Let's have some drinks on the beach and chill out and watch some playoff football and not have to stress about this team anymore.
I hear you. I'm with it. All
right, we got to hit up Thomas Spray. We appreciated $10. The Panthers win total was set at 5.5 entering the season, and with 4.5 being historically low, that says a lot. It was a very lazy takeaway, but what should we expect? Great podcast, by the way. Thomas, we appreciate. I believe this is a first-time listener too, right?
It's a first-time live listen. Yeah, I know Thomas.
Listen.
Thomas used to write for Cat Crave. He does some color commentary for the Virginia Tech women's college basketball program. Super good dude. He does The Drive on Twitter, DRYVE. If you're not familiar with that network, give them a follow. Really good stuff. He does like deep statistics and advanced analytics and does some really cool graphic work as well. Thomas, thank you, man, for the super chat.
Appreciate it, Thomas.
And he makes a good point with that too, is that our over-under before the season started was very low. So the expectations weren't high for this team. But man, like we just don't even hit the low expectations. You know what I mean? Like, it's like every year we see a team in the NFL that ends up hitting way over their expectations or goes from worst to first. And in the NFC South, man, how many times did we see that? I think we saw like 8 years or something that we had a team go from worst to first. Like we saw it. And we just are out of that rotation. I want to get back in that rotation is all I want, man. I want the tides to turn, and I do feel a bit of optimism that they can turn here. JP in the chat has been saying it. We've been patient for too long, but not with this regime. You can't judge this regime by what others have done. Fair. And while I rant, I get a little bit hysterical, and I don't always care about being right or using factual basis to my anger. I just go. You know what I mean? I'm like a wind-up toy, man. If you turn me too hard, I'm going to go every direction. So that's what happens sometimes. I apologize about the early rant. It's in the first hour, and I did this to our listeners. Thank you guys for sticking around.
And I don't think anyone here is out on these guys. I just think, and I had low expectations for this team this year, but that doesn't mean I can't be pissed off when they're getting their ass kicked. Like, that's just the reality of it. So And I ain't gonna settle. Like that's just that's not me. So I want to get back to Evero for a second. And two things. Because I think it was Dunk. Someone on Twitter had pointed this out, and I thought it was a really good point because all off season, everyone's let's get rid of Burns, let's stack up that money, let's get rid of, they weren't too upset, or maybe they were upset about Frank leaving, and I know a lot of us were like, well, Evero is going to figure it out. He's a good coach. Well, he didn't figure it out. So like I think we banked on a lot of that off of this staff, like, oh, they'll get it together. They'll throw a bunch of guys together like they did last year, and they'll somewhat be competent. And that just was not the case. So a lot of people, it's kind of like, Wolf at this point, like this, we should have expected this. But Ricky, you talked about it probably a half hour ago now, it feels like. But Evero said something very interesting today. And when I saw it, I'm like, oh boy, here we go. But he said, there are certainly things I could do schematic in relation to fixing the run defense. Well, then why the fuck haven't you done it? Like, why would you come out and say that? So I wanted to get your guys' take on that. I know, Ricky, you're going to have some choice words here, but man, like, why?
I mean, so look, I think what it was too, though, I do think that it's a very candid thing to say that. And I think that what he's almost insinuating, and I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I would love to take the words out of what he said because that just sounds so bad. It's so bad sounding. Like the optics alone are enough that I wouldn't say it. But I think what he means is that there are things I could do schematically if I had all of my players at my disposal. I think that there is a caveat to that. I think that if Derek Brown were healthy, I think that maybe schematically he could have done some different things, especially with his fronts and who he was using. Maybe Shy Tuttle isn't used as often, right? But again, then you're putting Derek Brown at nose tackle, and this gets into the entire original gripe that I have had with this schematic thing, is if you don't have the personnel, you go and get it. And the nose tackle position for this scheme, I think, is relatively important. I just do. And I think that if you are going to refuse to do that, you're losing some of my leniency for like grace, right? If you're not willing to do everything you can. And when I first heard him say this comment, you know what came to mind? It's like if you have a really bad wound and you have to use a tourniquet to stop the bleeding, you might end up losing that limb if you use that tourniquet, right? But you won't bleed out and you won't die and you won't cease to exist. You just won't have a right arm anymore. Maybe at some point, even if it's to the detriment of something else that you want to do, and we touched on this in another episode, some of the things that he would have to do if he moved J.C. Horn around, if he started having him as a more of a satellite player, it would make a domino effect of other moves that he has to make for his scheme. And he didn't feel confident that he had the personnel to do that. But it's not working what you're doing already. So you do take that opportunity and say, maybe it's worth a one-game exploration of what happens if I do this and I can see it in real time instead of just having this hypothetical thing in my brain that seems like it's better. Put it out there. Tie the tourniquet for a game, dude. Stop the bleeding in that one area that is killing you. Like if you are getting crushed in the run defense and schematically there are things that you can do, but maybe it puts more pressure on the tail end of your secondary or the third level defenders. I don't know, man. Maybe you make them have that pressure for a game and see what the result is. Does the end result end in a closer game? Could you possibly have won that game? That's what I want to see. You know what I mean? So Evero, while I think he's a good coach, I think that he's dropped the ball a couple times here this season, and he has had not a lot at his disposal, dude. So it's not fair to say he's done a really bad job, but we're going to be historically one of the worst defenses to ever play in the NFL. We just are. And that is a rough, big old pill to swallow if you're a Carolina Panthers fan.
Bryson?
Yeah. Before I go, let's go ahead and bring up Alex's super chat here. Shout out to Alex.
$49.99, Alex.
A weekly listener, our guy taking our bets, even when he's not confident in us, but he rolls with it. Oh crap! I haven't been on since y'all hit on 12-11. If Curtis was half decent at this, then y'all would be making bank on commission. Love it. Love the Curtis hate.
We missed you last episode.
Yeah, happy belated to Alex,
Cheers,
too.
buddy.
His birthday was New Year's Eve, so happy belated, Alex.
Cheers.
Oh,
Cheers,
happy
Alex.
belated. Cheers.
So what I was going to say to Evero's comments, I don't know about you guys, but if I were to go to my employer during, let's just say, a review of my performance, and they were like, these are the issues that's happening in your job, and these are the things that you can do to fix them. And I was like, yeah, I could do those, but I'm not going to. I would be coming home unemployed. So I don't know where the disconnect is with there's more to it. I agree with what Ricky mentioned. Like, yeah, he's saying that like Evero is a super smart guy, probably one of the smartest guys in that locker room. For him to say something like that, I feel like he's kind of dropping a hint or trying to give us a little something. I don't think he's just so oblivious and dumb that he's like, yeah, I could be. There's things I could do. Like, just I don't think he's that dumb. So I think he's trying to drop a hint. Unfortunately, things haven't been done, and I don't know why. Obviously, it needs to happen. Moving on from this year, like I said earlier, we got one more game. Just turn the TV on Sunday or Sunday. That's right. They did put on Sunday, and just drink some alcohol and watch Bryce Young play good because Bryce Young's been playing pretty good. So when the defense is on the field, you can go cook some food. You can cut the grass if your grass is still growing, power wash the driveway. Do whatever you need to do when the defense is on the field because it's not going to be pretty.
I'm telling you now, if Bryson rallies our listeners to power wash during the game, I need him to do that at my house. I've got plenty to power wash if anybody gets that bored. By all means, I even got the power washer for it. Bryson, you're going, man.
Dude, I love power washing, man. There's few things more satisfying than like seeing a dirty driveway and a clean driveway after power washing. So
say less, my friend. I'm going to give you a really fun time the next time you come down to Charlotte.
Yes, sir.
Bryson gets turned on power washing.
Yeah.
Add that to the donut. So I mean, I know where you guys are leaning on this. So you guys are out on Evero. You don't want him back after the year.
I want to ask you, Curtis, too, and Bryson. I want both of y'all to answer this. Do y'all think that Evero might be hinting that he's done, that he doesn't want to be here anymore? Does that sound a little bit like a person that's like, hey, look, yeah, there's some more that I could have done. I don't think this was my best showing this year. Like if what, because Bryson, you're the one that made me think of this when you're talking about that. If you go in and you're doing your review with your superior, right? And you're saying, yeah, man, I'm just not doing a very good job right now. That doesn't necessarily sound to me like someone who's saying, I'm going to do better though. Like I'm going to prove to you that I'm supposed to be here. It sounds like someone who's saying, this might just not be my thing, man. Like this may not work out. I might need to start somewhere else. And honestly, dude, I'm not going to have that much of a gripe with Evero if that's what he wants to do, because I do think that they kind of stripped him of some stuff this year. I think he had some input in that and some feedback in what he got back, and the people that are playing for him, I don't think is just like some sort of, hey, here's a bucket of screws. Why don't you go play on the concrete? You know what I mean? Like that's not what it is. But it was
bottom of the barrel.
But it was bottom of the barrel. He didn't. Yeah, that's right, man. Like he got all the toys from Big Lots while all the other kids are shopping at Toys R Us. You know what I mean? Like he just doesn't have the same stuff. And so I do understand some frustration maybe with that. But it sounds to me like this is a guy who would be okay leaving Carolina if that was the decision that was made.
I don't know. And maybe I'm reading into this, but the way I like him and his interaction with Dave and JC Hornaday, I don't know if you saw that video. That made me think differently. Like I thought, like what you said, maybe he's out. But then I see his interaction with JC and, dude, we left you out on an island this year and you held your own. And like, I don't know. I'm going to probably just fall on the sword forever. My stubborn ass is going to and down with the ship on that. Because I do think if he was given the right pieces, this defense would be solid. but it's concerning. Like his comments today, leaving Farley on Mike Evans. You still had Mike Jackson in the game. That is your obvious choice there, who has played against other wide receivers. So there are things I've disagreed with him and some of the zone coverages he's ran this year, a lot of them really. But I just don't think the talent's there. I mean, this was like watching a preseason game this week, and it really was. Everyone gives me shit for that. Oh, Alex, I love you, buddy.
So when you talk about the dynamic with JC, though, and Bryson, you give me your opinion on this. You talk about the dynamic between JC and Evero that we on you made the Pro Bowl video, right?
Yeah.
They're homies. They obviously look like they have a good relationship. But isn't it interesting that during the season when JC was asked by reporters about would you like to shadow, would you like to follow the team's best player, his responses to those questions didn't necessarily seem like, yeah, I would love that, but like my coach doesn't want me to. Like, it's a system, it's a scheme. It didn't necessarily seem like he was thrilled about that. So while they may have a respected relationship, right? They may respect each other as peers, a coach and pupil type of situation. I don't know necessarily that I think that that's like some sure thing that means everyone's going to stay because they respect him. I think everyone's widely respected, man. Like, he was in the running for head coaching jobs, like he's clearly, we've seen the speeches he gives. He's clearly a motivator. He's a people person. But some of these guys also want more results, I bet. Like, I bet you that some of them want to be doing different things and having more success. And maybe that's why we're seeing so many good players want to get out of Carolina on the defensive side.
Yeah, and I can see where you're coming from, Curtis, with that thinking from that video. But to me, I just see a defensive coordinator, being happy for a player he's coached for the past couple seasons, making the Pro Bowl. Ricky, your point about Evero kind of being like, hey, yeah, I could have done that better this season. It wasn't my best job. And I kind of lean that way more. I wasn't necessarily putting that together until you said that. Maybe it was like he had that review that I mentioned, and they were like, yeah, I mean, there were things that you could have done to improve this run defense, and it just didn't happen. I lean more towards moving on from him this season. I still do think he can be a good defensive coordinator. I think he can be a good head coach, but sometimes your time just runs out where you're at, and changes need to be made. You have a quarterback who's showing promise. You have a head coach that's, I say it with a grain of salt, but showing promise, at least in improving his, young quarterback for his team. So I think sometimes you need that change, that spark, and I could see that happening in Carolina this offseason.
If I ask one last final question, if I may, when Canales said something about this scheme and that he believes in it and he's seen it, he thinks that it could be really good when it's done well, right? That was his comments a couple of days ago. What is he saying isn't being done well? Is it that the players on the team aren't good enough, or is it that the coaching isn't being executed at a high enough level? Because if what you're saying is we need to get better players, then you're going to say we need to allocate pretty much the bulk of our resources to the defensive side, right? Which I wouldn't disagree with. But then my question to the head coach, Dave Canales, would be, so are you saying that you're content with the personnel you have on the offensive side, that you have everything you need to run a very successful ship on that end? Because what we saw this year, even when it was at its best, man, still wasn't elite level offense. It still wasn't, we're going to win, we're going to be in every game offense. It was inconsistent. We don't have big-time playmakers. The way to get big-time playmakers is likely, well, the most likely route, right, is either high-end draft capital or big-time free agent money. Those are the two ways that you acquire major-level talent, usually. Now, can you find gems? Absolutely you can. It is not frequent, and it is not something that you should bank on as your strategy. So if it's not happening and it's not executing well, is it coaching or is it personnel? And then how do you fix that? That's my problem, is that there's a lot of, it's not lip service. I think they mean this stuff. It's not crappy, but it's open-ended without the answers. And that makes me a little bit nervous. That's all.
I want to ask you guys this in chat. You can answer too, since we're all running our mouths here. And I got to defend Evero a little bit more. Name the defensive players on this team that would start for any other roster right now in the NFL.
That was a good answer.
Give me the answer. Give me the answer on that.
All right,
I'm serious. Give me the answer.
I would go J.C. Horn, Derek Brown, obviously when he's healthy. I think DJ.
I'm not saying that. No. Those guys were hurt. We're taking that. I'm saying I'll give you. I'll even
just
give
the guys
you
that played this year.
I will give you week 2 and on. Name the guys on this roster that would start on any other defense right now.
Okay, J.C. Horn, Josie Jewell.
Mm-hmm.
I think Mike Jackson would start somewhere else, to be honest. I think Mike Jackson's a pretty good ball player.
He didn't in Seattle.
Seattle's got 2 really good corners.
And Seattle's got Tariq Woolen and what's the other kid? Witherspoon. I mean, they've got stars over there. Okay, well, either way, you asked me my opinion, and I'm giving it to you. DJ Wanham proved me wrong. I think that DJ Wanham would be a starter in the league. He was a starter with the Minnesota Vikings. Jadeveon Clowney was a starter with the Ravens. I think that he would still start somewhere else as well. And that's probably about where I would stop it, to be honest, would be those players. A'Shawn Robinson. I think A'Shawn Robinson would start for an NFL team as well. I think A'Shawn's been a solid football player.
So four out of the 11 is going to start on an NFL roster. All the other guys are glorified backups or even third or fourth.
Well, yeah,
right now,
because he won't let me say Derek Brown.
And the last week, you had what? Josie Jewell out. You had Trevin Wallace out. You had Sherless, who doesn't start on any other team. You have a guy that Bryson mentioned who's undrafted, who wouldn't start on any other team. You have cornerbacks like Farley, who was cut, and he's starting against Mike Evans. You have Dane Jackson.
He started because we had nobody.
Awful. But that's my point. Like, Evero does not have the personnel at all.
How about week 1? What was the score? What did we allow?
Hold on. He barely had the personnel to start the season. Like, we didn't have Wanham. We had Clowney. We had Clowney on the line and Derek Brown.
Yeah, Wanham was the only one missing week 1 for us.
Yeah.
Week 1, and what was the final score? What did we give up week 1? Like 43, 47 to Derek Carr and the Saints?
And we also
coming off of the offseason?
And we also had Bryce Young throw 2 interceptions.
Yeah, it was terrible. So it was all bad.
I'm just saying, like, this defense, the personnel is awful. Like, I don't know what defensive coordinator would make this defense look any better. They're shit. They are shit. And you also had J.C. Horn out this past. Like, it's just it's been awful. And
no doubt.
And I if I'm a betting man, I think Evero's gone. I do think he's gone. But I guarantee your ass, whatever team he goes to, that defense is going to be pretty damn good. And I would put $100 bet on that's what's going to happen. This guy has not had the personnel at all. And you cannot argue with that whatsoever. This defense is depleted, shit, and bottom of the barrel of the league. So,
and I think to counter your argument, Curtis, he's also not done himself any favors when he doesn't allow J.C. Horn to shadow the other team's best wide receiver. When he brings J.C. Horn on blitzes and leaves Mike Jackson and Caleb Farley out there to cover, like he has made some pretty boneheaded decisions as a defensive coordinator with the lack of talent that he has on the field on that defensive side of the ball. But I would argue that last year's roster on the defense wasn't significantly worse than this year's. I mean, you don't have Brian Burns, but he hasn't done shit in New York. I think
Frankie
there's
Louis
talent.
Too.
Yeah, you Louis for sure. But you have Josie Jewell, who's been out quite a bit. I would say Frankie Louis is a better player than Josie Jewell, but similar style of play. I think, like I mentioned earlier, I do believe Evero is a good coach, and I agree with you, Curtis. I think if he goes somewhere else, he's going to have the defense playing well. But his time in Carolina it's up. It's run dry, and I think he's made enough mistakes as a defensive coordinator to garner this sentiment from Carolina Panthers fans. And we're not trying to say that he's a bad coordinator because I don't think that's what most fans think. I think that it's time. It's over in Carolina, and I agree. I think he's gone after this season.
It's a matter of if Evero goes somewhere else and he's a good coordinator somewhere else, we see the same thing with players all the time. What like we talked about, like, well, we didn't lose that much, right? Brian Burns isn't doing that well. I mean, Brian Burns is playing pretty solid in New York. Like he's not putting up TJ Watt production, right? His sack numbers aren't going to be crazy. His deeper analytics are pretty favorable for him, to be honest. He can make an argument that he's playing really good football up there in New York. But then you talk about Frankie Louvo, Jeremy Chin. YGM, for crying out loud, over in San Francisco, has been playing pretty solid for them when they've been asking him to play. He played okay for us as well. And this is where I'm talking about what the plan is. YGM didn't have a huge price tag, right? He didn't. Even when he signed with San Francisco, it was probably more than you wanted to pay. But is it better than what maybe
YGM's a product of his system?
But was he though? Because he played some of the best football of his career last year with Evero. Some of the best football of his career he played with Evero last year. And he fits exactly what Evero claims to want from his edges. A edge setter that can offer situational pass rushing if you have to, right? You're telling me that he wouldn't have been a better player than Charles Harris or Thomas Incoom in for that reserve period of time? That it wasn't.
But we don't know if they didn't try to resign him. We don't know if they didn't try to resign him.
But if he went somewhere else, it's like the same thing. They tried to resign Frankie Louvu. They talked about what to do with Jeremy Chin. They talk about all these things.
Ricky, let's be fair. Are you going to go to the 49ers?
That's my
playoff
point.
team, or are you going to stick with Carolina? I mean, that's
100% my point, though, because at some point you have to have a draw, though. You have to have an appeal to these players. And if Evero is not that appeal, if Evero's system and his scheme is not that appeal that is willing to keep players, these guys went to the Washington Commanders with Dan Quinn, and it was his first year as head coach. They had no idea what that was going to be there. They had a rookie quarterback. That team could have been
he's an established DC, though. That's not fair. He's an established DC.
So is Evero. Evero was in the Super Bowl on a defensive staff. Evero led the number one team.
But they didn't like his scheme. I mean, they don't like his scheme. I get that. I understand that. I'm just saying, like, that's a bad example. Dan Quinn is like one of the most highly respected. They left
for a volatile situation. A new GM, a new head coach, a rookie quarterback. They left for a volatile situation just because they believed in the one coach. Just because they believed in one coach. All I'm saying is, how are you going to bring in defenders, dynamic defenders, if all of our dynamic defenders want to leave because this system doesn't flourish with them? Like, that's not appealing. Who was one to come here? That's what I'm saying. If you bring in Robert Saleh, even if the scheme is very similar, you think Robert Saleh doesn't have the support of so many of those Jets players? You've heard it. They were bummed out by the fact that he was gone over Aaron Rodgers. They'd rather their quarterback have gone into the darkness for another 6-month hiatus. They don't give a shit about his little kumbaya stuff and eating mushrooms. They don't care. They liked what Robert Saleh did. Ulbrich was the young coach in waiting, and look what they've done. They're like a toddler. They crap the bed every other Sunday. Like, it's bad news bears. And at some point, if you don't have the talent, you need a coach to bring somebody in. I like Evero a lot, but we've seen an exodus. Until we start seeing people want to come in, I'm not sure that he's the guy to do it.
That's fair. We'll leave it at that. Let's jump to Bryce Young for a minute, because we haven't talked about him. And except for the score, I thought he played pretty well in this game. What were you guys' thoughts on him? He took a couple more deep shots. He obviously has the connection with Adam Thielen that we talked about before. But what are your guys' thoughts on his development up to this point? And we'll kind of leave it at there. Well, Bryson, why don't you go? What'd you think of Bryce Young in this game? I know there wasn't a lot of points on the board.
Yeah, I mean, there was more to be desired, but I thought when he had time, I think he was pressured at the highest rate of any quarterback in any game this season this past week. So when he had time and receivers were open, he made plays. But, there were a couple misses on some deep balls. But overall, I think it's a continued step forward for his overall progress and becoming that franchise quarterback for Carolina. I thought he looked good, like I said, when he had time, made plays when they needed to be made, or when he was able to make them, not when they needed to be made because it was a blowout. But when he was able to make them, he did. And look, I mentioned it earlier, there's not a lot of help for him on this team, especially when Chuba Hubbard's on the field and you have a first-round wide receiver who's struggling to jump at the right time to catch the ball. I'm getting a lot of flashbacks, sort of like Devin Funchess from Xavier Legette, which is not good. So he's got to get that figured out. They traded up in the first round to get this guy, and definitely fallen short of expectations for his first year in Carolina. Adam Thielen is by far the best wide receiver on this team, and he's going to be 35 years old. So they got to get that position figured out. The tight ends aren't involved at all. I agree with you, Curtis. I think Ja'Tavion Sanders needs more opportunity, and they're just not getting it. I don't know what's going on, but that's a continued issue in Carolina where the tight ends are just non-existent. So overall, I think Bryce Young continued to show what I hoped that he would show. I feel like, he didn't make any major mistakes. It was just a bad game for the offensive line. Like you said, they missed Taylor Moton, and the Bucs defensive line just had a field day with that offensive line, and thus made it hard for Bryce to consistently see the field.
Ricky, I want to ask you this, and you can talk about Bryce Young too. And JP made me think of this, John Paul Taylor. Why did it seem like when we watch whatever you want to call it, watch the tape, whatever, like Ladd seemed like he was going to be pretty damn good in this league. Like that seemed pretty damn obvious. And this maybe kind of goes back to our initial conversation. Like they want to have guys that fit where they want them. Why does it seem like so obvious to go take a guy, and then the Panthers go out and take Xavier Legette and he's struggling, and you see some of these other wide receivers that were drafted after him have so much success, and some of us were banging the table for some of these other guys. Sorry if that made any sense at all, but hopefully you know where I'm going with that.
No, I got it. And I think that you're pretty close to where my answer would be, is I think that they were worried about redundancy in that room, because I think that last year, I think that they had a significant amount of redundancy when they didn't have skill sets they complemented, they kind of just overlapped. And when you look at Adam Thielen, they knew that he was still going to be expected to be a big producer in this offense and that he was a safety blanket for Bryce Young. And look, I'm not even mad at that, to be completely honest, man. Adam Thielen is playing really good football. Like, there's just no way around it. He's playing really good football. I owe him an apology for me saying that I was cool getting him up out of here. I still think that maybe in another universe, if Jonathan Mingo hadn't completely just fizzled out, because I think that also played a part in the draft strategy, is that when you look at what Jonathan Mingo's game was supposed to be, being a power slot, big slot, was where he actually probably should have been playing. He was out of position at the Z, what we tried to force him into. He's clearly not an X. And you're seeing that in Dallas too, right? He's running into the same issues. But if he was the guy in waiting behind Adam Thielen type of deal, that's why you say, well, if we get Ladd, then what do we do with him? I'm not saying that's the right way of thinking, but I can understand that if they're trying to look at it from a, how do we even get this guy on the field? He may not see the field. We're going to stop the development of Mingo. They didn't need to worry about the development of Mingo. They should have just took the best talent available, a separator that could get open and catch balls for Bryce Young. And Ladd McConkey, as good as he is, he wasn't the only guy that fits that bill, right? There was other players in that same area. And if you wanted a big X type of receiver, I was very high on Keon Coleman. Keon Coleman was my number 4 wide receiver in that entire class, and he was there for the taking. I would have went and I would have got Keon. Yeah, I mean, look, I really liked his skill set. I thought that it made a lot of sense if we're talking about fit too, right? And like making this organic room where everybody can play with each other. I thought that he made a ton of sense. His measurables or his testing numbers weren't as favorable. Now, where I was hoping we were going with the Dan Morgan moving away from Scott Fitterer was less on those measurables and testing numbers and more on the production on the field. And what Keon Coleman showed with his production, I'm not harping just on him, right? Like, we can talk about Ladd McConkey too, but McConkey's production is a little bit harder to get into because of that Georgia offense. He wasn't used as much. He wasn't targeted as much. Keon Coleman, even at Michigan State to Florida State, showed ability to be used versatile, aligned anywhere from the wide receiver position. He was a basketball player. He's got that box out ability. He's got the vertical ability, terrific hands at the catch point. Everything that they want to sell you about Xavier Legette, and this isn't a knock on Xavier Legette, but whatever they wanted to sell you on Xavier Legette, Keon Coleman was better at. He's better at it. He's a better route runner. He's better yards after the catch. and he's better at catching the football. And that's at least right now. I'm not saying that that is for the rest of their careers. Xavier Legette has plenty of time, and Xavier Legette is getting open, right? Like, he's getting open on some of these routes, man. He's running better routes than I anticipated him doing. The dropping the balls is a major thing. Ladd McConkey would have solved that problem. I think you could have operated with Ladd McConkey and Adam Thielen. I don't know why not. But we also sit here and talk about why Jatavion Sanders isn't involved, and we say that's because of Adam Thielen. If this offense can only operate with one guy operating in one part of the field and then everybody else is kind of on the outside looking in, it doesn't really matter who you bring in. The offense has to evolve with the players. And that's going to be on the coach this offseason to say, we see what Bryce Young could do. And I thought that's what they were doing the last offseason, right? Was kind of Taylor making the offense. They ended up going with Andy Dalton. I think they're back to starting over a little bit. But at least now Bryce has shown, here's what I could do, man. Get me these guys and let's cook. So maybe they do prioritize a wide receiver in free agency or even in the draft and say, we need a speedster or we need an X still. I think Xavier Legette maybe is just a Z. Maybe he's not your X, and you need an X. If you can get a guy like a Jaden Higgins or Trey Harris out of Ole Miss, those are guys that can open things up for Xavier Legette and maybe take that off of him. But the worry at this point now is that we're going to run into another situation where we have a player that's not working out and we don't know what to do with him.
And I think this goes back to our initial conversation. Get the fucking letters out of here. The X, Y, Z. Just get good football players. Get good wide receivers. Quit trying to find a certain peg that you want. Just go find good football players and then make it work for your offense. And that's what they need to do. I'm going back to the JT Sanders comment. I honestly think it's a combination. And I had tweeted this out earlier because I really don't understand his drop off in production, because he really, like, when Bryce Young initially came back from the benching, he was 3, 4, 5 targets a game. I think it is a combination of Thielen. I also think the injury, he had that head injury a couple of weeks back, and really ever since then, he has not seen really the field and has many targets since that. I think it might have been the first Bucs game, if I remember. I think, Bryson, we were at that game when he got hurt. Maybe you weren't. Maybe might have been the Chiefs game. I can't remember, but it was one of those games where he got hurt. It was the Chiefs game. So I think it's been a combination of that, but I think the guy's got potential. Like, he can make some really good grabs. His yards catch, I mean, it is what it is. I do think he's improved somewhat blocking. I don't know if you guys agree with me on that. But I do think, like, if you go back to, like, where he was in preseason to where he is now, I think there's been some improvement. Ricky doesn't agree with me. That's fine. But I do think that guy adds value in that route over the two other guys. So, maybe we'll see some more opportunities this last game this season. But, man, I don't get it, man. They cannot figure out this tight end position. And they haven't been able to since Ron Rivera. And Greg Olsen, like, it's non-existent. It really is.
Yeah, I definitely think the blocking has a part in it. Bryson, Chris Dillard asked this question. Do you guys think that the risk situation with XL is more than what they say? So just my initial takeaway is that if it is, then don't play. You should have had surgery and you should have got it fixed. If that's what's happening, I don't think it is. What's your read on that, Bryson?
I mean, didn't XL come out and say that he's probably going to need surgery this offseason to fix it, and he's been dealing with it for a while now? Like, yeah,
through college.
I don't think it's more than what they say, because I think XL said enough. Like, it's obviously bothering him, and it's to the point where it's affecting his play on the field. So, you take him out, and we're looking at David Moore. We're looking at Jalen Coker if he's healthy. And then Adam Thielen, is that a better core than an injured XL? I don't know. But I think this is an issue that's going to have to be corrected this offseason, and hopefully he, makes the comeback. And that's not an excuse that we have for him next year. That throw and catch that turned into an interception versus the Saints, like, that just replays in my mind all the time. Like, there's no way that ball should have been picked, and it was. And it seems like a lot of people leaned on that wrist injury as the excuse. So I don't think it's more than what they say. I think they said enough about it, and it's obviously bothering him. So let's get it corrected. I agree, Ricky. Get off the field and have surgery and start that process of rehabilitation now. So you're good to go for training camp. Like, let's not delay it. What are you playing for? We're not in a playoff push. Like, there's guys sitting out all across this team from the defense to the offense. So just sit down and get it taken care of.
And that's exactly why I don't think it's an issue, to be completely honest. That's why I don't think it's why he's dropping passes. That's why I don't think that it's the reason for him playing bad. I think that if it were, and he had any kind of medical backup for that, right? Like team doctors, I mean, look, man, yes, it's something that could be addressed with surgery. If you've been dealing with it through college, he's 25. Like he's been, you know what I mean? Like if this is an injury he's played with and has not needed surgery, that's not why he's not playing well.
And he didn't drop the ball in college.
And he didn't drop the ball in college. It's a mental thing right now for me. And what I want too, and Bryson, you said this, and I love that you said it, and I don't even know if you like meant to say it the way that I heard it, but you're like, that won't be an excuse that we can use for him next year. It better not be an excuse that he tries to use for himself next year either. Like, you got to get that out of your repertoire, that it's even something that could be happening. Now, I haven't heard him say that that's why he's playing bad. He's actually said the opposite. So I'm not trying to put words in his mouth. He said it's not why he's dropped a pass. He says, yeah, I've got this wrist thing, but it's fine. I'm playing through. If it is bad, he should have stopped playing weeks ago. I don't think it is, and I think it's completely mental, and I hope, man, that he's able to cross that mental bridge right there, because that's a big one.
Let's talk about, speaking of Leggett, let's talk about, I think it was a play, everyone's been talking about it on Twitter, against a linebacker. Many say Bryce Young underthrew it. Anyway, he didn't catch a pass over a linebacker. Play should have been made, in my opinion. But it kind of goes back to a point, and I think, Ricky, I feel like you were been one of the first who has mentioned this, either on this podcast or online, of Xavier Leggett went in the air and just his awkwardness and timing of trying to catch a ball. So I just kind of wanted to talk about that for a second, and if you want to take it from here, of just what is going on with him when the ball's in the air. And I mean, that ball should have been caught against that linebacker.
It's interesting. The play that they had even earlier in the game where he broke free, it's that second play that Canales talked about at the beginning of the year, right? Bryson kind of breaks containment, or Bryce breaks containment. I'm sitting here thinking about talking to Bryson, and I'm calling Bryce Young Bryson. Bryce Young breaks containment, and he gets out of the pocket. And at that point, it's a scramble drill, second play. Xavier Leggett, he runs towards the boundary a little bit more. Initially, that was his first step. And Bryce, damn it, man, I'm going to keep calling him Bryson Young all night now. Bryce is throwing it upfield, right? And there was still a chance, so even with that first misstep there, for him to get there and make that play as well. But it ties into the play that you're talking about with jumping over the linebacker. His tracking of the football is a very questionable thing right now. And that also starts to play into the body control once you're in the air. His timing is off on when he's leaving his feet a few times. He's making catches harder than they have to be. He does have this really exemplary ability to hang in the air. Like you can see the athleticism even when he's mistiming it. I mean, dude, he's an athlete. He's up in the air. He's holding his body. The body control is there, but it's at these awkward angles because he's fully extending his arms east and west instead of up at a high point, right? You time that catch the right way. You time that throw the right way. You're not doing those angles. You're not allowing a linebacker to have his hand in that position to make that play. That's the whole gripe that everyone is having, is how do you allow that? How do you not have your body in position and you time that catch attempt to eliminate that threat? I think that it's a mental confidence standpoint. And I think that once he gets through that, I think that he can be okay. I really don't think that this is a physical deficiency with XL. It doesn't look like Jonathan Mingo with the field awareness and the spatial awareness. I don't see that same thing. I see tracking as an issue. I see timing as an issue. And a lot of that, in my mind at least, and I could be completely off on this, I would guess that some of it is second thinking himself, second guessing himself of, can I make this catch? Can I do this? Is this now? Am I early? Am I on the same page? With reps, with consistency, and with confidence, I think all of those things can change. But right now, it looks very rough, man. Like, I'm not even going to lie. His tracking has been a difficult thing to watch for me this year.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's similar to what Bryce went through, and just like you mentioned, Ricky, just thinking too much, man. You just got to go out there and play. Go out there and have fun. Play the game that you've played since a kid, and just make it a natural thing. Quit trying to think so much when the ball's in the air and just catch it and go. Like, we haven't really seen any of that like breakaway speed that everybody talked about, getting them in open space, that whatever he ran, 4.3 40, whatever it was. Like, we haven't seen that at all this year. He's obviously on the field thinking too much. I am far from giving up on him. I know I've been hard on him, but it's going to take time. Like Ricky mentioned, getting on that same page with Bryce. This guy missed training camp. We talked about that early in the season, like how those reps were important for him, and I think it's played into it. Bryson played in the preseason with him. Bryce was benched 2 games into the season, and they missed however many games the benching went on for. So there's been this time between those two, and it's obviously shown on the field. Whether that's all Xavier's fault or not, I think there's obviously some room to grow for Xavier on the field, and just play football, man. Just quit thinking, quit stressing, and then just go out there and be the good player that everybody knows you can be, that you showed in college.
Yeah, it's what needs to be studied is the amount of opportunities Leggett has had as a shallow crosser, which he made millions of dollars off of in college, because that was his go-to. You give him a shallow crosser and he rips it off for 70 yards, and you see that much at all in Carolina. So hopefully they figure that out. But yeah, I mean, I kind of agree. Kevin, I think, said this. Throw his comment up here. I think they just want Excel to find the end zone and end the season on a bit of a high note to get his confidence up. I really hope, he does kind of show out in this last game. His play. I think was he limited today? I thought I saw that. Don't quote me on that, but I know he's been dealing with something. We'll see if he plays in this last game. But yeah, I think that would help, getting him a boost going into the offseason. But I also think he needs to, and I criticized him a little bit in training camp. Like, he needs to pump the brakes a little bit on, if he is like the wrist surgery, like he needs to chill out, let that thing heal, and then come back. Because we saw when he missed mandatory minicamp, and then we saw him, I'll never forget it, the full-on sprints with Deebo Samuel when he had that hamstring injury, training with him, and then he comes back, and I'm like, what is this guy doing? Like, we need to chill out a little bit here. So, yeah, he needs an offseason where he gets healthy and, gets his mind right. Because I do think, and Ricky's mentioned a couple times, I do think it's a big confidence thing. I really do. I think that's a big reason why he is struggling right now. And he's in his own head, and that's the problem.
The other issue that could stem from this, man, and not to go far left on this, but if we continuously are faced with Adam Thielen, Jalen Coker, Jatavion Sanders being the only guys that are finding like moderate success with Bryce Young, right? Like, and we don't ever have like this outside receiver breakout with Bryce Young, that question is going to start boomeranging back to Bryce Young and his abilities. Can he make the throws that those kinds of receivers are best at getting open and making plays on? Now, I'm not saying that because we've seen the missed throws or we've seen the missed catches and stuff like that from these receivers, but that's going to become a narrative again, that they're going to say there is a part of the field that Bryce Young can operate and execute really well at, right? And there are certain ways that if his receiver is getting the open release out of the slot, and if that's the truth, man, then they need to start incorporating XL a little bit more out of that as well, because you still have the different skill sets. We talk about the speed. This is the thing with XL, man. He never had that 0 to 60 in a second type of speed. He didn't have that. He needed a open lane, man. He needed airway to get up to full speed. He needed a ramp up. That's why, Curtis, you talk about the shallow crossers. That's why he ran those so well. That's why he burned people on those, is because he had a full head of steam on a horizontal plane, right? That is what he did well. If we're not getting him in those advantageous situations, you're not using his skill set to the best way of his ability. But if that's only possible as a motion guy or in the slot, whether that's Z or slot, then what do? Like you're in this log jam and it's going to keep coming back to Bryce Young at some point. And that sucks for Bryce because I think he's throwing and playing really well. And we still have all of these questions because we keep asking either rookie receivers to be the guy for Bryce Young, or we keep asking guys who are not terrific to be the guy for Bryce Young.
Well, and I think too, Deontay Johnson fucked that all up because their vision was he was the one. You know, X would play his position he did in college, and that got all jacked up when they traded him, and that's when X was playing out of position, and then he just it was a mess from there. But JP, we got to talk about him because we haven't much, according to John Paul Taylor. You guys don't talk about Tep no more. You are right. We have not talked about the guy in. I honestly can't remember the last time we talked about her. Maybe when he donated to the Hurricane Helene victims. I think maybe that might have been the last time. Do you really believe he's taken a step back? It does feel like the Dan and Dave show, to be honest. I don't know how to feel about it, actually, John. You hear them, you hear the reporters say, Canales says, Tepper has been more quiet. And I think it's been very intentional by Canales and Morgan that they don't mention Tepper anymore. I think they've gotten the idea of we don't talk, whenever they talk about a decision, it's like Canales says, I've talked to Brandt and Dave about this. And Morgan's like, I've talked to Dave and Brandt about this. So I feel like there has been intentionality to not even mention David Tepper at all, even in any decision they're talking about. But I do think he's still involved in they're at least telling him what's going on. And I will never solely buy that guy is not involved on decisions. I can't get that out of my head. And maybe that's just because I really dislike Tepper. But I do think to some extent that guy still has the final say on when a decision is made. Not be as where he was in the past. I don't know if he's still telling him, hey, the Cleveland Browns ran this a couple of weeks ago. We should get this in our playbook to that extent. But I do think I would not be surprised if David Tepper still has weekly meetings with the coaches. That would not shock me if he still does that. So
sure hope he's not suggesting Browns plays at least.
I will leave it at that. But that was a rumor that he had suggested a play that the Browns had run, I think under Rule. And he wanted them to put it in the playbook for the next week. So there you go. But do you think Tepper's out of his hands out of the pot there, Ricky?
It's his football team. I don't think his hands are ever going to be out of the pot. I just think that if you have good people in front of him, then we don't have to worry about it. If we keep losing, Tepper's not going to be quiet. I mean, that's I don't know, man. I don't know the inner workings. You know what I mean? And so it's really tough to make an assumption on that. But I just think it comes down to wins and losses. I think if this football team wins games, I don't think that anyone's going to have a problem with David Tepper. I really don't. Because I think that when teams win games, everybody acts pretty damn well. Kansas City Chiefs, their owner was a much maligned owner. He was a very unliked guy. The fan base didn't like him. The team didn't like him. And all of a sudden, how much bad publicity does the Kansas City owner get right now? Nothing. You know why? Because they only talk about Pat Mahomes and Andy Reid and Travis Kelce and now Taylor Swift. They don't give a damn about the owner because they're winning football games. That's what it comes down to, man. So win some games and we won't even have to talk about this. Curtis will still want to talk about it every now and then because we do enjoy this segment. But we could probably do it, once a year type of thing.
Yeah, I don't think he's ever not going to be involved. I think most owners are involved in decisions made for their teams that they spent billions or millions of dollars on, depending on when they paid for them. So maybe he's taken a step back on from the level of involvement that he's been in on in the past years. But to Ricky's point, what the head coaches were doing, what the front offices were doing, wasn't working. And I'm not trying to defend Tepper, but I've always said this. I believe he wants to win. I believe that wholeheartedly.
Agreed.
I think he wants it just as bad as the fans do. He's not afraid to spend money. He's not afraid to.
Oh, it's Shad Khan.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's opened up his checkbook more than a couple of times to try to get this team on the right track. His decisions haven't always been the best. Of course, we all know that. He's doesn't seem like he's the best dude in the world, spilling drinks on people and taking hats off people or whatever he's doing. But I think he wants to win. He's not a cheap owner, and I think eventually it's going to happen. I don't think we're getting rid of him. I think we've seen some glimpses of hope this season for this team moving forward, and it's just he has to allow the football player or the football people to make the football decisions, and I'm hoping that's what he's doing moving forward.
All right, I think we're going to leave it there. We got to take a break. We're going to talk statistically speaking. Man, I think this is the longest we've talked about a game before. So we got statistically speaking up, and you got bets. His favorite segment. I got some numbers for you, Alex, so stay tuned for that. And keep it here. We'll be back after this short break. If I can pull this up, stand by. Give me 2 seconds. It's been a bit. Exciting news, Panther fans. I'm thrilled to announce our partnership with BetStamp and Sign Up Expert, opening up an incredible opportunity for you to join sportsbooks in your area to get the best odds and new user offers. Head over to our dedicated page at signupexpert.com/Panthers to explore a selection of sportsbooks tailored to your region, each with unique offerings. If you're ready to take sports betting to the next level and show some love to Panthers on Tap, I highly recommend signing up for your next sportsbook through our Sign Up Expert link. All right, welcome back. Thank you guys for sticking with us. 3:45 listening in on a Thursday night. I appreciate every one of you guys. If you don't subscribe to our YouTube channel, if you have an account, please do. It takes a couple seconds, and then it'll alert you and notify you anytime we are live streaming or dropping any videos. So we do appreciate the support. Before we get into the stats, I do want to touch on one person quickly. Bryson talked about him. I tweeted about it tonight. But Eddie Pinheiro does not get a pass, and I just want to discuss that for a minute. Panthers got the ball back with 20 seconds before the half. Bryce Young beautifully, like any veteran quarterback, drives their team into field goal position. And honestly, hats off to Canales with the timing on that, because I feel like he has struggled with that sometimes, and I feel like the timeouts he did, but I think he called a timeout with 28 seconds left. I feel like coaches in the past in Carolina over the last few years would have just let that slide, and we would have went to half and knelt it down. Canales calls a timeout with 28. Panthers get the ball with 20 seconds left. Bryce Young drives down, sets them up for a 53-yard field goal, and then Eddie Pinheiro lets us down for the 100th time this season. And misses wide left. Where do you want to see this go? I kind of posed this tonight, maybe going after a rookie kicker. I don't know how much research you guys done on kickers, but I think it's clear everyone wants Eddie gone. I'll pose this to both of you guys. Do you guys want to see them or a veteran? Do you want to see them draft someone? Do we bring Mevis in the offseason? What will you do if we go into training camp and number 4 is still on the roster?
Yeah, it doesn't matter to me which way they go, whether it's a veteran or a rookie or a UFL kicker or a CFL kicker or a high school kicker. They need to go somewhere else for that kicking position, because Eddie Pinheiro is not it. He struggles on kickoffs. He struggles on making field goals. He is not a good kicker. And that nothing makes me more angry than when people throw out that stat about him being one of the most accurate kickers in the NFL.
I was just about to say it.
Because we all know why that's the case. Minimal attempts, and from 30 and in, he's making those. I think he's shown us what he is. He cannot make any kick over 50 yards consistently. He just doesn't have the leg for it, man. And he's missed PATs. I feel like when you need it and you know you need it, he's not making it. He's not a clutch kicker. And he's shown that time and time again. Now, he has made some game-winning field goals in his career. Whoop-de-fucking-do. I don't care. He sucks. He's done in Carolina. He is a position that needs to be addressed in this offseason. I do not want to see him on my roster after Week 18. And honestly, I don't want to see him on my roster for Week 18, but, that's where we're at. So I don't care what they do, but bring in someone else to kick that fucking football. Bring Joey Sly back. Bring Graham Gano back. Bring anybody back. Bring
Joey
anybody
Sly.
in to address it, because Pinheiro sucks ass at kicking the football. Bring in top 1 million. I think that's 1 million. Kicker Rico Dowdle.
That's who they should bring in.
Yeah. Rico Dowdle could kick the football better than fucking Eddie Pinheiro can.
I would trust him to kick the football
100,000 kicker.
Okay.
100,000 kicker.
Hey, thank you.
The zeros
Carter,
are blending at this point.
Yeah, thank you for keeping that bit going, man. That is one of my favorite bits that we've done this season. Bryson said it all, and you talk about rookie kickers. Dominic,
hold on. Why did I get so hot? Hold on. Why did I get so hostile about Rico Dowdle? That's what I want to know. I don't even know why I was getting all fired up about Rico Dowdle.
You defended him like he was a Panther through and through, like he was a lifelong Carolina guy or something. But it was okay because it made for a really fun thing. And at first, you didn't even get the bit when we kept calling him top 55, top 50, top 75. And he didn't even get it. We just kept going with it. It was like an inside joke with me and Bryson that night. It was a lot of fun.
Oh, I was just fired up. I was ignoring whatever the fuck you guys were saying that night.
Smart. It's usually a good strategy. My wife ignores me 99% of the time. So, yeah. So look, Eddie Pinheiro. Here's the deal, man. Dominic Zavada is a terrific kicker for the Michigan Wolverines. I don't even know if he's draft eligible, but if he is, draft him this year. If he's not, use your fourth as a placeholder and get his rights if you have to. You know what I mean? Like honestly, man, at this point, dude, I am open to exactly. Like I am open to very unconventional methods. And if we have to have top 275,000 kicker Rico Dowdle fill in for a year, I'm fine with it, man. Let him sub in as running back every now and then. We know Jonathan Brooks is probably going to be on the mend. Let's get a two-way player. But no, in all seriousness, man, we had this conversation before the season. It didn't have to be Harrison Mevis. We all wanted it to be Harrison Mevis because it would have meant that somebody beat out Eddie Pinheiro and that he wouldn't have been here in Carolina. It was not about Harrison Mevis. At least not for me, it wasn't. I don't care who it was, man. I honestly don't. They could have had my really wonderful neighbor Susan and go out for an open kick-out tryout. And if she had won it, I'd have been ecstatic for her, right? I don't care who it is. Just don't have it say Pinheiro on the back of a number 4 jersey, which he never should have been wearing anyways. I don't care what John Casey did and the mistakes that he made. He was light years better and meant more to this fan base than Eddie Pinheiro and his crochet shirts and his rum drinks ever will on the offseason. I want it all gone. There are other guys who have filled in throughout this season that will not be on rosters come the beginning of the year. Close your eyes and pick one. Just put the names on a whiteboard. Cover your damn eyes, put a blindfold on, and just point at one. Sign him, cut Eddie the same exact day, and we move on. The thicker kicker could be Ricky Raines. I would love to get out there and do it. Are you kidding me? Somebody please pay me to go and kick a football. I would absolutely love that. No, but really, like, there's just got to be a solution out there that is not Eddie Pinheiro. And Bryson said, when it counts, he doesn't make kicks. When it doesn't count, he doesn't make a lot of kicks either. And I've seen my share of misses, and I've seen enough of his reactions about it. I've seen when they have Johnny Hecker out there kicking on kickoff because they don't even believe in Eddie Pinheiro to get it into the designated return area. And Johnny Hecker is dwindling in front of us as well when it comes to leg strength. And they still want him to be out there. Preach. So if we're letting a guy who we know is starting to dwindle be out there because we don't trust the guy who's supposed to be in his prime to kick the damn ball off of a tee far enough to get into a landing zone, what are we talking about, guys? Like, we talk about getting good football players in. Kickers are football players. You need a good one. We don't have one. So make that change.
Yeah, I think the whole Panther special teams needs to be talked about more because I think it's not been very good this season. The return game, the punts, we obviously saw the blocked punt this past week, scoop and score. I know Johnny Hecker, I think, was an alternate in the Pro Bowl, but I think that's honestly off of name more than anything, if you want my honest opinion. But yeah, I mean, I'm not going to lie. I supported Eddie going into this season. I thought based off of what he did with Mevis missed some kicks as well. Does he got the leg? Yes. But I'm not going to deny that. You can look back. We called him Steady Eddie at one point. I won't deny that, but yeah, I've seen enough. You're only as good as your next kick, and he has been shit. So there was a guy tweeted out tonight. I think it's Ryan Fitzgerald. He was a kicker. He's a kicker at Florida State. He's one of the top kickers in the draft. He went 13 for 13 this year on kicks. He also went 100% on extra points, and he went 5 for 5 in kicks over 50, and he hit a 59-yarder this season. The problem is you'd have to probably draft him the way at least the draft sites have him, he's like between a 4th and 6th round pick. So if you're wanting to put a lot of value into that position, you maybe go and get him. Maybe he does slip and maybe they're just wrong. I don't know. But Panthers do have a lot of picks. I mean, I think they have either 2 or 3 4th rounders and 2 or 3 5th round picks.
Think of it this way. Jonathan Mingo could turn into a decent kicker for us. I take it. If you can flip Johnny Mingo for a kicker that actually puts points on the board, something that Johnny Mingo has never done in his career, by the way, then I'm for it.
Oh, Alex. One thing about our parlay, Alex, because I need to bring this up, because you like to run your mouth about my picks, and you missed this episode a couple of weeks ago. And I believe Ricky has officially taken the lead since our last episode. But before we get into we haven't even gotten to our bets yet, but Alex is running his mouth, so I need to bring this up. So since the entire season, we missed obviously last week. We didn't do a bet in week 17. But since the season started, Ricky is in the lead. He's got 10. He's made 10 correct picks. This year, I've made 9 correct, and I believe Bryson has made 8. So we're all really close. The only week we didn't hit on was week 1. So hats off to us. That's fantastic. For us to hit on that. And also, we're making bets on half the time. These odds aren't even out. Like we're picking these on a Wednesday typically, and they usually only spread out for the Thursday game. So we're picking these way ahead of time. But yeah, hey, kudos to us. I mean, Alex has won several $100s off of our picks. So what can I say? Oh, Alex, you always got a damn comeback, you bastard. Let's get into statistics speaking here. God damn it, he's funny. I appreciate his involvement. Look at that. The 2025 balloons. I love that. It's so subtle, but it's fantastic. All right, Ricky. I love this graphic. Take it away.
Yeah, just a couple of dirty birds in the trash can where they belong. Look, we decided that we would do an abbreviated version of the statistical speaking today because A, this is a different Falcons team with Michael Penix Jr. at quarterback. And B, the Carolina Panthers are a shell of themselves in this game. This is not a game where we have to look at the year-long statistics to have any idea about what the approach is going to be from either team. So we decided we would highlight a couple of things. Bijan Robinson is the first guy there on the left, the talented running back out of the University of Texas. 1,286 rushing yards. That is 4th best in the league right now, and he has 12 rushing touchdowns, 428 receiving yards to go with that, with 1 touchdown added on. Now, he has the most forced missed tackles since entering the league in 2023, and that's from NFL Pro. And the additional part of that statistic, which is just remarkable, man, when you think about this, he's accumulated 1,019 yards after missed tackles in that span, making him one of only 2 players to generate over 1,000 additional yards, Derrick Henry being the other. Now, where there's importance with this is that for this matchup, right, the Panthers have missed the most tackles in the NFL this season, 189 missed tackles for the Carolina Panthers, resulting in the 4th highest missed tackle rate, 14.5%. Dude, are you listening to that? Like, just think for a second. When we talk about like this defensive coordinator and the defense, these are fundamental things too. And these are things that, like, I get it, man. Like, we're playing 4th, 5th, 6th stringers that you want to say. All of those guys are playing in the NFL, which means they are better than a lot of the guys that we watch on Saturdays play that are making tackles too. So there is a lot of stuff that we need changed here. Additionally, the 1,069 yards allowed after missed tackles is the third most in the league. So it is a recipe for Bijan Robinson to go absolutely nuclear on Sunday. Like, this is a really dangerous game for the Atlanta Falcons offense if they decide to stay with the ground game, which I think they will with Michael Penix Jr. Speaking of Michael Penix Jr., we have here on the graphic, Michael Penix Jr. is not Kirk Cousins, especially not this current version of Kirko, because that's the truth, man. He's got both of his Achilles intact. He looks like he is comfortable moving around in the pocket, and he does have – look, Michael Penix Jr. has a very strong arm, and he can deliver some beautiful layered throws. I have seen a lot of people saying that the Falcons have definitely found their quarterback and that they're in great hands and all these kinds of things. I think there's a likelihood that's the case. I have also seen some pretty inaccurate throws and some pretty panicky decisions from Michael Penix Jr. in the 2 starts that he's had. And remember, 2 starts. I'm not judging him off of that. But you have to give a real-time evaluation, right? If you're going to sit here and talk about a player. Michael Penix Jr. has a lot of tools in the box. I haven't seen anything that is going to make me say, man, he's going to be the best quarterback in this division. I still think that could land here in Carolina. Michael Penix Jr. has completed 11 of his 14 passes for 154 yards against cover 3 since becoming the starter in week 16 this season. That's another stat from NFL Pro. Why is that important? The Panthers utilize cover 3 at the second highest rate, 45.2% of dropbacks faced, and have allowed 7.6 yards per attempt when in cover 3, just below the league average of 7.7. I mean, this is set up for them to have a very nice and successful offensive day, especially if J.C. Horn is going to be out again, if Jadeveon Clowney is out again. Josie Jewell, I don't know if he's back. I think I saw that he had like a limited practice. Did I see that correctly, or is he out all week? I thought I saw that he got one in. But yeah, so Michael Penix, he was out. Okay. The last guy that we have here on this slide is Jesse Bates. And I just thought that it was interesting just to bring him up. Like, I don't really have any kind of statistical reason to do that. And so I know that that's kind of going away from the whole point of this segment. But Jesse Bates, man, we remember he absolutely devastated Bryce Young's first career start, right? And Bryce Young is on this beautiful redemption tour and this like comeback story, and he's proving a lot of people wrong. I would love to see him just have a really solid day throwing the ball around. I don't think that our ground game, I think we get Miles Sanders back. Maybe somebody feels a way about that. I'll let them talk about it because I don't know that I do. But I just don't anticipate the ground game being too much of a factor. I think that we're going to attack them in through the air. And I would like to see Bryce Young make a couple of really nice throws, man, find a couple of end zone balls and continue on this trajectory and go into the offseason feeling pretty decent about ourselves.
Yeah, to your point about Penix, watching him, what they play? Was it Sunday night or Monday night they played this week? They played one of the late games.
They were Monday night, right?
I agree with you. Like, I saw some things, I'm like, damn, he could be pretty good. And then I saw some boneheaded, questionable plays, and I'm like, all right, like, hopefully he makes more of those versus Carolina. But the one guy I'm worried about the most is Bijan. I mean, special player. And we know this defense. We don't need to harp on it any more than we've had. It's bad. So I think he's going to go off in this game, and that should keep them in this game for Atlanta wise. I'm honestly
think the chat likes Miles Sanders.
I'm honestly not as concerned. Maybe I'm being a little bit more optimistic than I should be about their defense, because I feel like Bryce Young has played really well against pressure lately and has put up points against some solid defenses in the last several games. So my biggest concern is this offense and what Michael Penix are we in it? Are we in a guy who's has, he's clean with the ball and doesn't turn the ball over? Then I think this is going to be, it could be bad. And this is a team fighting for a playoff spot still. So they do have something to play for. Carolina has some pride to play for in this one and try to, end the season on a good note, end the season on a bang. But
look at you.
I don't know. Yeah, look at me. But yeah, I mean,
you're in TV or something.
Bryson, Any concerns with this Atlanta roster?
Yeah, like what quarterback have we played and we got their bad game? I don't think anybody that we've played this season we got their bad game because our defense is just that bad. I think Penix is going to look like Bo Nix did. He's going to look like David Carr. Look like Derek Carr did. He's going to look like these quarterbacks that aren't great, that just have spectacular games because there's going to be no pressure. There's going to be no coverage. Penix is going to have all day to throw. He's going to pick it apart. I think when he has time, he's a pretty accurate quarterback, and he's got the arm strength, like Ricky mentioned, to get the ball where he needs to get it. So obviously, Bijan is my biggest worry for sure. I took the free throw of him in our bets, and I think they're going to have their way with us, just like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers did. So, like I said earlier, when the Panthers are on defense, find something else to do. You don't have to watch the game. You don't have to do that to yourself. It's the last game of the season. Just start relaxing now.
We might have an opportunity for people who are local in Charlotte to relax with us on Sunday as well. We'll get that to the maybe we'll touch on that after we get done with the bets and then see if we can't come to an agreement on that at some point this evening. But where was I going with that? Oh, John Paul Taylor says Jesse Bates has 98 tackles, 4 interceptions, 4 forced fumbles. He's a heck of a safety. He is. And that's kind of why I want to see, I don't know, man, Adam Thielen, right? Like I kind of want to just see like a layer throw right over Jesse Bates for 6 in the what do they call it now? The Mercedes-Benz Dome or whatever the hell their giant, beautiful stadium is that sells actual good food at regular prices. I just kind of want to see something from Bryce Young that makes him feel vindicated, because I think that Jesse Bates robbed him of such a beautiful moment in his first game. And you know what, man? It's a welcome to the NFL thing, but I wanted Bryce Young to come out flying out of the gates and just have this storybook career, and it hasn't happened for him. So I'd love to see him get on that trajectory now. If I have nothing else to root for, that'll be what I go for this week.
As they say in the TV world on John Paul's comment, Kyle Pitts, don't touch that dial. That's your team.
Oh, look at that.
Let's move on to Ricky's amazing last graphic here.
Yeah. So look, in the South, by the way, if you're wondering what this bag of beans is over here, the black-eyed peas in the South are a sign for good luck, or fortune, or old tradition and things of that nature on New Year's. So I put that, but I did put the giant thing of alcohol over there so that Curtis was more comfortable and familiar with that part at least. My New Year's resolution.
What are you trying to say?
Oh, no, I'm just saying you like wine a lot, no big deal. New Year's resolutions for the Carolina Panthers. I don't really know, man. Just play hard and like you hate the Falcons. Like that's the first thing that I want out of 2025. I want to see these Carolina Panthers play like they are the rivals of the Atlanta Falcons. I don't give a shit about not being able to get in the playoffs. I want to see them play hard. I want to see them play competitive and disciplined football. And that leads me into the second part that we didn't even really talk about with the Tampa Bay game, but it was actually my major gripe with the Tampa Bay game. As long as it's competitive, compete. If this score gets out of hand, right? If we are down 34-14 in the fourth quarter, take Bryce Young out of the football game. And that's not saying that I don't think he should play. I am 100% in favor of getting reps and playing games. I think that it is extremely valuable, especially to Bryce Young and the guys who are healthy on this team, and just to build that culture.
You will see Jack.
But that game in Tampa, though, man, that game in Tampa, though, man, that game got out of hand. And I thought that Bryce actually took a pretty significant hit towards the end of it when it was out of hand. And all I could think to myself was like, you had an opportunity before that drive. And I think I tweeted something about it and just said, all right, it's time to let Jack Plummer come in and hand the ball off for the rest of the game, right? And I'd made a snafu there. It probably would have been Andy Dalton. Jack Plummer was the third emergency quarterback, so he probably wouldn't even have gotten in the game unless it was for injuries. But my point was, get your starting quarterback out of the game because you're going to lose that football game. There is nothing else to prove. You're getting slaughtered. The offensive line is allowing people to come in like they're a revolving door. If that happens again, I 100%, I need to see you take Bryce Young out and have that awareness as a coach that, hey, look, we came out, we gave it what we had. We're losing today. It's not going to go our way. I don't need this kid to be on the bench all of next year. And then we're in a situation where we don't know what the hell we're doing with our quarterback in the future. So come out, compete. I want to win this game. I want to beat the Falcons. I always want to beat the Falcons. And if we're within 10 to 14 points, play everybody as much as they want to play. I mean that sincerely. But if this game gets out of hand, be a really good head coach, man, and make the right decision too. And make it in a timely manner, not when it's too late.
Come on, Ricky. You should know by now that Canales only wants to protect Andy Dalton and would only take Andy Dalton out and bring Bryce Young in to protect Andy Dalton.
Got to keep his guy healthy. You know what I mean? You never know when good game of pickleball breaks out and you need a veteran to do it.
I want to ask Bryson this, and then we'll go to Ricky. Bryson, do you, and this kind of goes back to your theme, do you want them to win this game or do you want them to lose for draft position? I know my answer on this question. Where are you with this last game?
Win this game 10 times out of 10. We are a losing franchise that has not had a lot of wins in the past decade, damn near. So win the game. I don't give a fuck about where we're drafting. We'll figure it out when we get there. I want to win, and I think every player on this team wants to win, and I think Dave Canales wants to win. I think everybody associated with the Carolina Panthers wants them to win. So win the game. I don't care about the draft position. One win, move you down a couple spots. Who cares? We're not drafting a quarterback. There's going to be good players available where we're at. So win the game.
Win the game, 100%.
I'm usually on that end. Give me a draft pick. I don't think this is going to do much for you next season. Give me a premier spot. We need an all-pro player who is playing for the next decade in Carolina. I don't want this guy who's injured for half the season. I don't want a guy who's on the fringe at a position. Give me the next Luke Kuechly. Give me the next Derek Brown. Give me a premier player at his position.
Let me ask,
and that's where I'm at.
Let me ask a question. Can I ask you a question, Curtis? Since you're the only one who's cheering for losing on this podcast, by the way.
And I'm usually on the other side of this. I really am.
Don't give me that usual shit. You give me what you just said right there, and we're gonna go off of that. Now, here's what I'm gonna ask you. You say you want the draft pick, right? So if we lose this game, and let's say that we end up, fifth is the best that we could be, I think. Fifth or something like that.
No, that's not true.
Or no, we could get all the way to second, but a whole bunch of other shit. Yeah.
Second.
A whole lot of other stuff has to happen, and it's not going to happen. But I hear you. You can keep wishing upon that star, Tinkerbell. But I'm going to tell you, and I don't think I said that right. That's probably not even who did that. But either way, if you get, let's say, a top 5 pick, top 6, right? Instead of going down to 9, 8 that me and Bryson are okay risking our lives for to get this win, and hopefully it carries over into the next thing. But let's say this: you get 6. You feel like 6 is way more worth it, or 5th pick is way more worth it, 4th pick is way more worth it. Have you ever seen a player getting picked at 4, 5, or 6 that has not turned into a franchise player? Has that ever happened? It has, right?
I just don't. I don't.
It has. Now, have you ever seen a player picked at 9, 10, 11 that's turned into a franchise player? You know what it depends on? Making the right pick no matter where you pick, and then developing that player once they're on your team. That's it. Yeah. That is all the NFL draft is. And I'm going to tell you what, man, we talk about what the Los Angeles Rams do with their drafts. They're not drafting in the top 10, guys. They're not. They draft later in the draft. The Chiefs, they draft at the back of the draft. And every single year, you know what we say about the Chiefs and the Eagles?
Carolina still can't get that right. So
no, but think about the Eagles too, right? Every year we're like, man, we just let that drop right into their lap. Yeah, because at 6, we took Ikemakwanu. We let it drop into their lap because we took Ikemakwanu at 6, and you want the 6th overall pick. I'm just warning you, man. Get that win, and then draft well wherever we are.
I just think there's a lot less opportunity to fuck to pick up if they're higher up, but that's just me. And that's kind of where I'm at. And I also think some of the guys they're looking at are perceived, at least from our end, who they could consider. I don't know if they're going to be around at 9.
And that is fair. This draft, I think, is top heavy, and you got a top 5 guys, and they're going to go in the top 5 to 6 to 7 picks. Like, there's not going to be a whole lot of shuffle probably, but that doesn't mean that there's not really good players that are going to be available.
And the way
10.
things are stacking up, like with the Giants winning this past week, like there's an opportunity if Carolina's picking high enough where they could trade down and get more picks. And that's that's also a factor for me too. Is like if they could, what are they at right now? 6. If they could get up into at least the 5 or 4, I think they can go up as high as 2. I agree. I don't think they get to 2. They could go to 3 even possibly. But even if they could crack in that top 5, I think that could help them if there's a team needy for a QB at the end. So
you would trade back and pick.
I think it gives them more. Yeah, but if you can get a high second, like dude, their second round pick is the Rams, who's probably gonna. Or I think they're in the playoffs. I think that's a lock at this point. So what, you're picking late second round for that pick? So like I think there's. I think they can get some value there. And I get it, like that drops them back in the 9s, but if they could gain something high end of that second round, I think there's value in that too. So I mean I think it goes back to I don't trust them. I don't. Like I hear you. I think they need,
and I'm giving you a hard time. I'm just giving you a hard time. My major gripe with you is the fact that you want us to lose. I just think that that's incredibly, I don't know, Canadian of you or something.
I mean, I won't be mad if they win. Like, I won't be upset like, oh, fuck, they just fucked us. No, but like, I think at the end of the day, I've been hearing this for years. Let's win the last game. Let's win the last game. And then it fucks them over. And then here we are, and we're picking some bum in the first round.
That's the team's fault. But you talk about getting Xavier Legette confidence in the last game of the season, getting him to score a touchdown, to go into the offseason with confidence. I think it goes for everyone on this team. Let Bryce Young come off a win. Let Canales coach a win in the last game of the year. Build that confidence going into the offseason. In my personal opinion, there's not that big of a difference picking 6th and picking 9th. There's going to be quarterbacks picked. There's going to be quarterbacks overdrafted. So you could argue that them picking higher,
but even if they lost, they wouldn't be picking 6th. They'd be picking 5th at the minimum, I think.
Well, 5th and 9th, I still don't think it's a huge drop off. But I think you could argue when if they're higher, there's more of a chance for them to fuck it up because there's more players to select from that haven't been drafted yet. So I think you can go either way. And knowing Carolina's history, being higher in the draft is not good for them because they fuck it up most of the time. So. It is what it is. I always want to win. And I think either way, they're going to have a good pick.
All right, let's talk about it. Well, let's get into our bet. Let's run that's here for a second, and then we'll get into predictions. There it is. Ricky, we'll go bottom up. Why Mike Evans? Right. I was looking at Mike Evans, to be totally honest with you. Just for some different stats, some incentives for Mike Evans in this game. I think hold on. Before you go, he needs 5? He needs 5 catches and 85 yards, and he will get $3 million in this game for a bonus. So there's some incentive there, and him and Baker, that's obviously his number one guy. But anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
And they're playing the Saints, who are absolute trash water right now. This is likely a runaway game. You get Mike Evans at plus money here, right? Plus 165 for a first half anytime touchdown. The over-under for his receiving yards, I believe, was like 96.5. I considered that. But I think that there is a real opportunity here that the Buccaneers are up by triple scores, if not more, at the end of that first half and going into the playoffs, and they say, hey, look, Mike, you had injuries earlier this year. You got your bonuses. You know what I mean? Like, we're going to sit you down. I think that they try to get him involved early. I think that they find the end zone. I also just think that he's been playing really good football. Mike Evans has been playing great ball since he's gotten healthy. So I think that he gets into the end zone early. I think you see his 5 catches. And I'm hoping that at least one, if not two of them, man, I would take a look at those 2 first-half touchdowns. If you really want to take a flyer and make some serious money, take a look at those odds, because that's probably closer to that 500 plus 500 range. I wouldn't hate that either. I think he sees the end zone early in this game, and maybe twice.
Bryson?
We can't hear you, man, but you look great doing it.
Sorry, guys. Sorry. You think I would have that figured out by now, but mine is an absolute free throw. I think the only way that Bijan doesn't get this is if it's a blowout and he's taken out of the game. I mean, I don't need to say much more. It's the Carolina Panthers defense, worst rush defense in the NFL, one of the worst in the history of the National Football League. So Bijan over 95.5 rushing yards is easy money.
Yeah, this was going to be my pick, but for folks that don't know, I let Bryson and Ricky make their picks, and then I pick off of theirs. So, Alex, kiss my ass. Now, for this pick, Kyle Pitts. So, Carolina last week, when they had bottom-of-the-barrel personnel on defense, does anyone know who Devin Culp or Payne Durham is? I don't think you could pick that name out of a hat and know who the fuck that was. But those were 2 tight ends for the Buccaneers. Culp had 52 yards. Payne had 36 on Carolina. That's 2 tight ends. They both surpassed that in this game. Kyle Pitts, over the last couple weeks, 44 receiving yards against the Commanders. He dropped off against the Giants, had 28 against the Raiders, had a couple bad games in between there. However, when he's played Carolina, every single game he's played against Carolina, except for his first game ever against Carolina as a rookie, he has surpassed 27 yards in every single one of those matchups. So that's 6 out of 7. And, oh, by the way, in that first game, J.C. Horn shadowed him that entire game, and that's why he was shut down. That's not happening. J.C. Horn is probably not playing in this last game. And if you watch this past game, Kyle Pitts will probably get this, like John Paul said, by halftime. And I think easily he breaks this. I thought this was low as hell for him. And when I saw it, I'm like, shit, that's it. That's the pick. So without a doubt, I'm taking this all the way to the bank. And Alex, if this doesn't hit, I'll send you $5. There you go. So that's what we're going with this. Ricky, I was kind of disappointed. I was hoping all of us would have picked someone from Atlanta this week in this. I think it would have been hilarious.
I really did consider it, man. But then I also just had a really, you know what I actually was looking for? I was looking for the Bryce Young over on passing yards. But the first site that I went to, I didn't see it. And it was late. I was very late getting my pick in today. And I wanted Bijan Robinson as well. When Curtis says that was what he wanted, it was what I wanted. And then Bryson got his, guns blazing pick in early. And I was like, you son of a, that just took everybody's best bet right there. Like, if we could bet that 3 times, if there was any way to find like another over and just keep betting that over and over, maybe alternative rushing yards, I'd bet it all the way up to like 130, man. I think Bijan has a killer day. But yeah, the Mike Evans thing, it was just my fallback because Bijan Robinson was really the apple of my eye.
All right, let's go into the game. I think we have – come on, chat. You guys are quiet on predictions. I think one other person had – what do you guys got this week? We'll start with Ricky.
I'm going to go 34-17. Atlanta Falcons. Sorry, I thought that was obvious. I didn't know I needed to say
what? Yeah. So you want the Panthers to win, but you don't want to even pick them. Come on.
Why would I pick them? Why would I pick them? They just lost 48-14 against the Buccaneers.
That is lame.
Why in the world would I pick them?
Just because we want them to win doesn't mean we're stupid.
Yeah, I'm going to cheer for them. I'm going to cheer for them like crazy, and I'm going to talk shit. If I see a Falcons fan, I'm going to tell them they're going to lose.
Your mouth is, damn it.
No, that's a terrible thing to say to someone. But
that's how you lose money.
Don't do that. Yeah, I've got a giant mouth and I will talk shit all day. I'm not betting my money on it.
Oh, Lord. What'd you say? What was the score?
34-17.
34-17. All right. Bryson, what do you got?
I, too, have Atlanta winning. I want the Panthers to win. If they win, I'm going to be very happy. But I don't think they're going to because the Falcons are a better team right now. So I have the Falcons winning 28, the Panthers 19.
19. That's a lot of Eddie Pinheiro field goals.
Or is
Couple
it
safeties.
misses? Or is it misses from Eddie Pinheiro?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it could be.
Missing
It could,
PATs. Yeah.
it could
Right.
be 3 touchdowns and 2 missed
And not a
extra
single
points.
extra point.
Oh shit! I'm trying to find. Oh, here we go. I had to get John Paul's. He had a prediction here: 34-10 Sunday, but we can still fuck the Falcons season up. That's your motivation. And then Thomas said 27-17 Falcons.
I almost went 27-17, but I think that there's just too much room for them to score, man. I'm worried. If JC doesn't play, which I don't think he's going to, right? I don't think they've officially ruled him out. But if he doesn't play, man, we're just in trouble, man. Like, we're in trouble.
Yeah, I'll go a little bit higher than you because I was kind of thinking where you were at too. I'll go 37. Is that even a possible? Yeah, 37. Let's go 37-24 Carolina. So they score a little bit more, but I think they still end up losing this game. This defense sucks ass. That's just the reality of it. I hope Bryce Young can put up some points just to build some confidence going into next year a little bit, but I think this is going to be too much for them, and they're on the road in Atlanta. I think it'd be a little bit different, honestly, if it was in Carolina, but I don't think they got a shot in this one, sadly.
I agree with that. I think if this was played at Bank of America, final game of the season, I think it could be a game very similar to that Cardinals game, to be completely honest. Now, I also think that Taylor Moton being out is a significant thing too. Like we saw that this team doesn't have a big margin of error if they're missing people. So if they're going to be depleted again, man, I think it's trouble. I didn't want to go higher than 34 because I don't really trust Michael Penix still. I still think he could make some rookie mistakes, man, especially if he's trying to force stuff. That's why I think Bijan Robinson is such a knockout play because he's going to run that ball so much, man. But if you run it a whole lot and you're taking up clock, are you going to score more than 30? I don't know.
Is there a chance, and I don't know if you guys at all, is there a shot at all, I can't believe I'm saying this, that Josie Jewell plays? I know he's been out the last 2 days because of the concussion, but is there any, has there ever been where a guy's out all week from the concussion, he still comes back Friday and then ends up playing on Sunday?
He can so there's like a 2-step final step process of it, right? Where if he gets like a full participation tomorrow on Friday, then there's like a secondary neurological part that he would pass on Saturday, and he could still get clearance to play on Sunday. So tomorrow really, I think, is the big thing. I think if he's no or DNP tomorrow, I think he's toast.
Yeah, I think Taylor Moton too, you mentioned. I think that's a big one. I don't know. Was he limited at all, or was he still both out these last 2 days?
I thought he was out, but I could be wrong about
that. See if I can find this quickly while we're just sitting here. No, Moton was out again. Oh no. Moton was limited Wednesday, and then he generally gets Thursdays off. So he was off today. So there's a possibility Moton plays. I think that would help.
That would be a huge help.
So
not enough for me to change my pick, I don't think, but it would be helpful. I think if Moton played, I'd feel comfortable saying that maybe the Panthers put up 23 instead of 17.
Yeah. Oh, John Paul. That's funny. Oh, that's good. But yeah, like Ricky said off the middle of the show, actually, Bryson and I are going to be traveling down to Charlotte. We're looking to watch the game on Sunday at some bar. Ricky probably has the best recommendations since you live in that area. I don't know Charlotte too well to be picking out the hot spots for bars in that area. But we will be there. If anyone is in the Charlotte area and is interested, hit us up on Twitter and we will, we're just trying to find, if there's interest in it, and then we'll probably pick a spot. I don't know, Ricky, if you have any in mind off the top of my head. We've been to Thomas Davis's bar before. I don't know. I don't know what to feel about the place. Like, I've been there before. I don't know if they have food. I could be wrong. Maybe they do have food, but like when I was there, you could not walk in the damn place. Like, it was completely packed. It was after a game. So that one close to the stadium wasn't bad, Bryson. The last one we went to. You probably don't even remember that because you were so drunk. But
was that Clutch? Did y'all go to Clutch Poorhouse?
Yeah, no, we didn't go to Clutch. We went to the one on the corner by the baseball stadium, kitty corner from there, or caddy corner, whatever the fuck you want to call it in the South.
Big outdoor area.
You know
I
what I'm
remember
talking
that. I got pretzel bites and some water.
Yeah, it's right across.
Everything he could to soak the alcohol up.
Yeah. Oh man, what was that? Oh, that's gonna bug the hell out of me now.
I've got a large Rolodex of bars that I'm mildly familiar with here in Charlotte. That
just need the sound. That's it. Need the sound.
Yeah,
obviously the picture as well, but the sound is important.
Right.
Graham Street Pub. That's what it was.
Graham Street Pub. Yeah, that's solid. Did they have the sound on the games?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
No, we went there after. I have no idea. We went there after the game, just to grab.
There's a new Giant bar that Mac and Bone did like a pregame show at down here on in South End area that had I think it was like a 40-foot TV or something. We could see if they put the sound on, and I would watch anything on a 40-foot TV. It could be synchronized swimming, and I'd grab a 6-pack of beers and watch it.
Well, anyway, if anyone is interested that's tuning in, let us know, because we'd like to hang out with some of you guys. If you're in that area, game on Sunday, to sulk away this final game of the season before. But hey, at least we're not talking about a head coach search. I'll take that. I don't know.
JP
how you guys
has
feel
a
about
good
that
suggestion here for us too for after this game for next episode. We should remember that one. That's a good. I like that. Can you guys come back after this game when we know our draft spot with 3 guys each who you would draft and why? That's a tough one.
Yeah, we'll be talking about that next week, and I will push this out while we have 400 people tuning in right now. Big episode next week. We've had these guys on. We haven't had many guests on this year, but we will be bringing Edgar Salmingo, JJ Hardy, and Kevin Avery on next week. We've had them on several times throughout the last couple of years. But we talked to those guys before the season, and we did some predictions. We're going to revisit, do 2 hours and it's as long. I'm sure that episode is going to be probably 3 hours plus next week, talking Panthers and just the overall season as a whole, and then kind of looking ahead a little bit. We'll obviously dive more into free agency and the draft once we get there. But we will be talking about that more, and we'll definitely I'll put in my notes, John, your question, just so I can pull this up next week when we talk about it, because there's a lot of questions we all need to discuss about the future of this team and where they're headed. And I'm sure we'll get a better picture of that after this season and the final game of the year. So we do appreciate everyone tuning in tonight. Again, if you are in the Charlotte area, want to watch the game with us, let us know. And we will see you guys all next week. We will be doing this on Wednesday, so we'll be switching back to Wednesday next week. But until then, keep pounding.